the baby born in the underground labyrinth. He became an orphan as soon as he was born. He could only drink the milk of monsters to grow up. So this child has extraordinary power. He is so powerful that he is not considered human. As the battle progresses, children like this are constantly being rescued. Jim is a child who was rescued from the underground labyrinth more than 10 years ago. He was later adopted by the Amira family because he spent his childhood in the underground labyrinth. He was commissioned by his younger sister to join an underground photography team as a guide. Who would have thought they had only been in the underground labyrinth for less than 10 minutes? Trust Fund Kid and his sister were tired. Despite the warnings, they insisted on stopping to rest in place. Jim could only compromise with this. He reminded the accompanying bodyguards that they should not use firearms if they encounter monsters, and they should try to avoid conflicts as much as possible. Unexpectedly, his reminder was met with ridicule from the bodyguards. They taunted him, saying he was just a timid guide. Seeing this, Jim stopped speaking. While you guys are chatting here, a bloody slaughter may be happening somewhere in the labyrinth. Sure enough, with a cry from the Trust Fund Kid, everyone's heart immediately jumped. Following the direction, they could vaguely see a blurry figure in the darkness. At the same time, low growls could be heard. As the dark figure appeared, everyone finally saw that it was an injured horned beast, bloodied and limping. The bodyguards immediately raised their guns and moved to the front, forming a battle formation. Jim hurriedly tried to stop it, but it was already too late. The bodyguards had already pulled the trigger. Massive damage, causing the horned beast to let out a huge roar before its death. The reverberating sound waves made tears flow uncontrollably from the bodyguard's nostrils. Fortunately, the horned beast quickly fell dead due to its severe injuries. The bodyguards then gradually recovered from the shock. They began to feel scared afterwards. Luckily, there was only one horned beast, and it was already injured. Just the monster's roar alone had already made them lose their ability to resist. If there were two more monsters, the outcome would have been unimaginable. They all endured their fear, looking at each other with awkward smiles. The bodyguards at least put on a good show in front of the boss. Maybe there will be extra rewards after the mission is over. However, Jim was secretly nervous to the point of clenching his fists. He urged everyone to drop the package and leave quickly. Return to the ground. But these people ignored him and continued to boast about their brave performance just now. At this moment, several roars of monsters could be heard. This sudden sound caused Jim's pupils to shrink. It must have been the gunshots from earlier that attracted the monsters. The sound still seems distant. If we escape to the exit now, we might make it in time. I didn't expect those bodyguards to lose themselves in boasting to each other. They actually wanted to stay behind to kill more monsters. The horned beast that they easily dealt with just now is worth millions. If a group of monsters come later, they will kill 2 each as planned. Each person will earn over tens of millions. This is much more than what a regular mission pays. Jim on the side overheard this, and thought these were unrealistic words of a dreamer. He then remained silent, and decided to leave with his sister and Trust Fund Kid. But the younger sister was not willing to leave like that. She thought it would be great material for filming. She was about to speak when she was shaken by Jim's icy eyes. She could only obediently follow Jim's footsteps and leave. Unexpectedly, the more she ran, the more unwilling her little sister became. After all, she had prepared for a long time, and spent a lot of money to come here for this shoot. She became angry and insisted on dragging Trust Fund Kid back to continue shooting. She even sarcastically called Jim a coward. But before Jim could offer any words of comfort, a few gunshots and the monster's roar from far away responded to her. The sound frightened her, causing a change in her facial expression. Jim suppressed his anger and said quietly, "Quiet! Let's hurry. Those few bodyguards won't delay for long. We can't let Monster notice. We were separated from that team. Otherwise, they will catch up soon." Upon hearing this, the younger sister also realizes It seems the older brother had already anticipated the outcome of those bodyguards. She, bursting with holy virtue, in turn challenged Jim why he didn't persuade the bodyguards to leave at that time. At this moment, Jim was no longer hiding. The injured horned beast appeared inexplicably. It means that it is another group of monsters hunting down the prey. If I wasted time trying to persuade the bodyguards at that time, I guess we would all have died there. However, Trust Fund Kid, who had been filming with a DV camera on the side, noticed bloodstains on his shoes at this moment. He turned the DV camera around and started filming. On the screen, a monster with full of sharp teeth suddenly appeared. Next, a gaping bloody mouth was approaching him. The sound of the falling DV camera caught the attention of the brother and sister. He turned his head to see that Trust Fund Kid had become the monster's meal. He appeared to be on the brink of death. However, he was still stubbornly shouting for help. He was born in an underground labyrinth. He grew up drinking monster's milk. He was rescued at the age of 6 and later adopted and raised by a kind family. To repay his foster family, he plans to prepare a generous dowry for his sister. He promised to serve as a guide for the underground photography team Trust Fund Kid in return for this. Little did they know, under his guidance, not a single team member survived. Jim recognized at a glance. This is a monster called Wolf Ape, agile in its movements and possessing boundless strength. It is tricky as this type of monster belongs to a group. Sure enough, the Wolf Ape group has charged into the team for slaughter. In an instant, several teammates became food in the mouths of the monsters. Jim even saw a Wolf Ape pounce towards his sister. In the blink of an eye, Jim ran over quickly. At the same time, he swiftly reached behind with his right hand to grab the sheath of the knife in his backpack. He drew the knife with his backhand and held it in his hand. At this moment, his pupils unexpectedly turned black. He scanned Wolf Ape's entire body with his eyes. In an instant, Wolf Ape's weaknesses appeared in his eyes. Then his figure transformed into that of a swimming dragon from bottom to top. A set of silky continuous moves. He accurately targeted the weak points all over the Wolf Ape's body. Where the blade passed, blood arrows erupted instantly. Suddenly, he caught sight of another Wolf Ape sneaking up behind his sister out of the corner of his eye. It raised its arms, ready to strike down. In an instant, he boldly threw the long knife in his hand. It carried a strong wind and shot straight at the Wolf Ape's face. He used the force from his toes to kick fiercely, and then leaped off towards where the Wolf Ape was rushing towards his sister. At the moment he landed, he immediately lifted his sister up by the waist. I told you to throw away the package a long time ago. Carrying such a heavy bag on your back. If I run later, it will break your ribs. But there is no other way now, you have to hold on. The Wolf Ape on the other side, with its eyes scratched, has been stimulated to its animalistic nature. Ignoring the pain, it swings its huge arms around chaotically. But Jim is faster. In the blink of an eye, he has already moved several meters away. The Wolf Ape then endured the pain and pulled out a long knife from its eye. It found that all the team members had been eaten up by its companions. It was so angry that it howled towards the sky with a hoarse roar, as if venting its frustration at not getting any food. On the other side, Brother Jim and his sister had already escaped to a certain distance and stopped to rest. Amira, please adjust your condition quickly. The Wolf Ape may still come after us, so we need to hurry. Temporary safety. Let the sister recover from the shock just now. But along with awakening comes her saint complex. She began to accuse Jim with tears in her eyes, clearly possessing martial arts skills. Why didn't he take action to defeat all the monsters and save his teammates? The younger sister looked at him accusingly with blame in her eyes. At these words, Jim's face immediately darkened. Because it was agreed upon in the contract that his duty was only to be a guide. And along the way, he warned in advance of any possible accidents. He was diligent and responsible, but was completely ignored by these stupid teammates. If it weren't for the safety of his sister, He would never want to revisit the old place in any case. Suddenly a strange change abruptly appeared before him, and it inexplicably lit up. Through the brightness, it could be seen. The pattern that emerged on the stone wall was that of a badge. Jim was suddenly shocked and turned pale, because he knew it was the labyrinth badge. He had just dragged his sister to dash into the house crazily, and suddenly the ground cracked and collapsed beneath his feet in the labyrinth. No time to react. The siblings fell into the deep pit together. Jim didn't know how long it took for him to slowly regain consciousness. He only realized that his left arm was broken when he struggled to lift himself up. But even worse, he couldn't find any trace of his sister Amira around him. He had already vaguely made the worst assumptions in his heart. Looking at the labyrinth sign on the gate in front of him, he guessed that he might have fallen into the central chamber of the labyrinth. He planned to leave the chamber and go out to look for his sister. However, just as he was about to pass through the gate, he accidentally saw the giant snake twisting on the badge come to life. It stuck out its forked tongue and stared at him with its eyes fixed on him. Before he could react, the giant snake swiftly attacked him. It bit his injured left wrist at a very tricky angle. In an instant, a wave of dizziness hit him. He thought to himself, "This is bad. It seems that he was going to die here today." However, a voice echoed in his mind. "You will inherit this ominous underground labyrinth." His consciousness gradually became blurred and fell into a coma. The man was preparing a dowry for his half-sister. He risked becoming a guide for the underground labyrinth, but encountered frequent challenges along the way. First, there was a series of silly actions by his foolish teammates. They attracted a large number of fierce wolf apes. This almost led to the entire team being wiped out. They barely managed to escape. He was bitten by a mystic serpent. He passed out. I don't know how long he was unconscious. Jim suddenly opened his eyes and found himself still alive. He calmed down and began to recall the previous weird events. He could clearly feel the numbness and weakness spreading from where the snake had bitten him. But now not only had his body healed, even his severed arm had regenerated. But it wasn't the time to think too much at the moment. He had to quickly find his sister and leave the labyrinth. Not long after, he found his sister near the entrance to the first floor of the labyrinth. Although his sister suffered serious injuries, she was still breathing. She must be quickly taken to the hospital for treatment. So he carefully lifted his sister up and walked towards the exit of the labyrinth. It has been a week since the last underground exploration. This matter has become a news story reported on television. Everything has returned to normal. The only difference is the location where he was bitten by the snake on his wrist. There appeared an eerie snake-shaped tattoo there inexplicably. What's even more bizarre is that every time he touches it with his hand, the tattoo lights up with green light. Soon after, a control interface appeared, presenting various parameters of this named Garo tribe labyrinth. And Jim became his 123rd master. Out of curiosity, Jim searched online for a long time, but he didn't find any useful information. However, today he accidentally touched the control interface and pierced it. With a loud noise, the space in his own bedroom shattered like a mirror. Everything happened so suddenly that he didn't have time to react. A sense of weightlessness swept over him as he fell backwards. But in the next second, the scene instantly switched to a dark and dimly lit secret room. Jim, looking bewildered, calmed his mind. He looked around and saw the familiar emblem of the coiled snake and sword on the wall. He breathed a sigh of relief. However, at that moment, rustling sounds came from above his head. He looked up and was instantly scared out of his wits, causing his hair to stand on end. That snake came back to life. Its big eyes stared straight at him. That's too much bullying. Want to take another bite, huh? At the same time, his brain was working rapidly to come up with a countermeasure. He recalled that he had suffered before because the snake moved too fast. He decided to take off his coat and prepare to seize the opportunity. Sure enough, Mystic Serpent used the same trick again. With a flash, It had swooped in front of him. Jim seized the chance and threw his coat to cover the snake's head. Then he swiftly tied a few tight knots. It turned out to be effective. Mystic Serpent seemed to have lost its target. He crawled back to his original position slowly. "Next time I'll bring a knife and cut you 7 inches. Suddenly, a deep voice sounded. "You have become the inheritor of Labyrinth and have taken the throne of Garo. But you are still too weak to bear the weight of the crown. I believe that all of this is the arrangement of fate." This inexplicable remark instantly frightened Jim. Because he had an unbearable experience living in the underground labyrinth, when he was young, he grew up very resistant to and opposed to everything related to the underground labyrinth. This time, he took on the commission to become a guide in order to prepare the dowry for his younger sister. He followed the direction of the sound, roaring in refusal of the other party's nonsensical comment. But the voice fell silent, never to reappear. Just as he was raging helplessly, little did he know that in a dark corner, a figure was quietly observing him. Being secretly watched, he suddenly felt it and turned around abruptly. However, he seemed to only see a tail flash by from the darkness. Just as he was about to step forward to investigate, the voice of the younger sister came from outside the room. He felt helpless all of a sudden. How could he explain the sci-fi-like scene in front of him? "Forget it, just open the door first. But don't let her into the bedroom." He rushed back into the bedroom in one big step. But his movement was too large and knocked off several large pieces of the spatial barrier. However, the next second, a tearing pain surged through his body like an electric shock. It made him shudder in horror instantly. After a quick check, he found himself unharmed. At this moment, he had no time to think and quickly opened the door. He slightly shifted his position to block the way and took the initiative to ask about his sister's purpose. Who would have known that his sister hesitated for a long time before finally lowering her head? She apologized to him. Jim pretended not to care and responded. He told his sister not to take it to heart. He then reached into his pocket, planning to use the earnings as a dowry for his sister. He realized that the payment was actually in his coat. He subconsciously looked towards the direction of the labyrinth. But the scene before him made his pupils contract suddenly. A little monster had taken the coat off the snake's head and was rummaging through the pockets as if stealing something. He felt something was wrong in his heart. When he turned around, he found out that his house had been stolen by a minion. What kind of feeling is it to suffer a loss of 500,000 due to theft by a minion? However, the man remained calm and bid farewell to his sister. He then hastily closed the door and quickly locked it. He quickly rushed back to the secret room and hurried towards the stairs. But at this time, the stolen minion was nowhere to be found. He quickly picked up the coat and poured out the items inside. He suddenly felt his mood sink to the bottom of the valley. Damn it, everything else was there except the envelope containing money. He angrily threw down his coat and slumped on the throne in frustration. That was the hard-earned money saved from working painstakingly for a long time. That was to repay the kindness of his foster family. He planned to prepare a dowry for his sister. At this moment, his palm inadvertently touched the pearl on the armrest of the throne. A set of control interface appeared in the air. It turns out that the pearl on the throne and the tattoo on the arm can both summon the control interface. According to the system prompt, in order to find that minion, Jim must first complete, synchronize, and activate the labyrinth entrance. He presses the sync confirmation button without hesitation. The originally dim secret room suddenly lit up with dazzling white light in an instant. Immediately, a low voice sounded in his mind. "Garo Labyrinth, 123rd Generation Master Jim, activation successful." As the system syncs, obtaining Jim's personal information. The dark and eerie secret room that was there before is gradually undergoing changes. Before long, the labyrinth is reorganized. Compared to its previous appearance, what lies before us has been greatly enhanced. Summon the control panel. Other than the additional information about the entrance to the labyrinth, there have been no other changes. But what does this mean? We agreed to synchronize and activate the entrance to the labyrinth. Then we can find the minion and get the money back. Just as Jim was full of complaints about this, when he turned off the control interface, a sneaky figure appeared at the entrance of the labyrinth. They locked eyes, verifying that this was indeed the one he was looking for. Minion immediately turned around to flee. Unexpectedly, Jim flashed even faster and appeared behind Minion in the blink of an eye. He reached out with one hand and grabbed its neck directly, lifting it up. Such subtle tactics clearly did not scare the Minion. The little guy's ingratitude did not sit well with Jim. He delivered a big iron fist straight to the face of the Minion. The effect was immediate, and the Minion immediately became obedient. "Before I kill you, quickly return the money." Minion unexpectedly shook his head repeatedly to indicate no. "Very well, I'm starting to appreciate your courage now." His fist clenched once again as he spoke. Don't say that the Minion is also a discerning one. It hurriedly reached into its clothes to search. The next second, a large red gem was handed to Jim. "I want money, not your crappy stuff," he said. However, when he looked closely, it turned out to be velvet gem. This is a type of gem that condenses on rare plants growing in geysers. Due to its rarity and unique growth environment, it is almost impossible for humans to find it. Usually, people have to take risks, go kill dangerous monsters to obtain it. Therefore, its price remains high. Just 1 carat can be sold for millions. This one in front of me could easily fetch tens of millions. Jim's hands were shaking with excitement, and the strength in his hands involuntarily increased a bit. His actions, in the eyes of Minion, had a completely different meaning. It broke out in cold sweats, obviously trying to survive. One is not enough, more money. It instantly understood and reached into its clothes to search for it. This time it actually took out a blue velvet gem. This scene left Jim unsure of what to do. These 2 gems are worth tens of millions. He grip tightened in excitement, but Minion's face was now flushed red from being squeezed. It seemed like it was nearing its limit. It couldn't help but let out a loud roar. The gem in its hand was also thrown out as a result. In the blink of an eye, Jim quickly let go and released Minion. His figure quickly flashed in the direction where Jim was falling. I didn't expect that he only caught one. The other one touched his wrist and bounced away. The gem fell on the steps. At this moment, Jim turned around to catch Minion, but it was too late. Then Minion had already leaped several times and was about to escape out of the door. He was pretty fast. But considering these 2 velvet gems, I'll spare you. He didn't realize that the gem that fell on the steps was slowly floating up. In an instant, the outer layer of the gem inexplicably shattered. There was a vibration inside the sealed room. This movement gave Jim a sense of foreboding. He slowly turned around to look behind him. The man was accidentally bitten by a snake on his arm 7 inches. Unexpectedly, he inherited an ancient hidden chamber of the Garo tribe. Therefore, he was able to freely navigate the dangerous and opportunity-filled world of the underground labyrinth. Today, he accidentally dropped a gem worth millions. In an instant, it was unexpectedly sucked up by the secret room, ready to be absorbed. Jim suddenly turned around. The control interface unexpectedly popped up a prompt. Consuming a medium gem will repair and upgrade the durability of the labyrinth. Seeing this situation, he immediately exerted his strength and pounced towards the altar with the gem in hand. But it was too late. The energy of the gem has been absorbed by the altar and turned into ashes. Pop-up window shows 24-hour durability repair. Labyrinth upgrade will be completed after 72 hours. He felt like 100 claws scratching at his heart at once. That gem is worth millions. He had no choice but to sell the remaining red gem for 18 million to the swindler. 2 days later, the younger sister married her beloved with this generous dowry and the blessings of her relatives. Upon returning home, Jim still couldn't let go of the gem that had been consumed by the labyrinth. Just have to hope that this upgrade will be worth it. Only 24 seconds left until the labyrinth upgrade is complete. Soon with the system prompt. The labyrinth has successfully upgraded to level 2. He couldn't wait to stand up and say, "Open the door!" There was a space in front of him. It cracked like a mirror, revealing an entrance. As he stepped in, the control interface of the labyrinth also appeared. One of the prompt messages piqued his interest. That's when the labyrinth ascends to level 2, unlocking the Garo's nest. He couldn't wait to walk into the room and investigate. On the wall inside the room, there were several compartments filled with straw, but they were all empty. Curious, he walked into the room, intending to find out more. Unexpectedly, after only taking a few steps, he felt something eerie making noise behind him. Shortly after, creepy noises started to sound from all around, and they were closing in on him. However, the next moment, what appeared before him were 6 cute baby snakes. He summoned the system panel to display. They were summoned as Labyrinth upgraded. He could command them to do whatever is within their capabilities. Looking at this group of level 1 adorable pets with big eyes, they seemed to be waiting for their owner to assign tasks. He scratched his head. But luckily, he had played strategic MMORPGs before. He divided the 6 baby snakes into 2 groups, with 3 in each group. One group was sent out to explore the surroundings of the labyrinth. The second group is assigned to be laborers at home. They need to dig out a storage room. But Jim doesn't have high expectations for these baby snakes. After all, judging from their appearance, they are all short and small. Who would have thought? These 3 baby snakes at home work exceptionally hard. They dug the storage room in just 1 hour. The baby snake sent out to explore soon returned. How come there is only one left now? He felt a sense of unease in his heart. Is it so dangerous outside the sealed room? Did the other 2 die outside? With doubts in his mind, he quickly ran up to ask Baby Snake. It turned out that they had harvested too many spoils while exploring. So those 2 baby snakes stayed behind to guard the spoils. What a lucky break. No matter how you look at the baby snake in front of you, it's always cute. The baby snake obediently passed the map over. Jim opened the map and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The baby snakes have investigated the situation around the secret room in great detail. This can bring great convenience for future development. On the other side, Baby Snake has poured out all the spoils brought back. But it disappointed Jim greatly. Distinguishable from appearance and condition, they are all broken, rusty miscellaneous items and weapons. It looks like they are all antiques from the Geyser War era. However, based on these items, one can deduce the location of the secret chamber. It should be in a remote area of the underground labyrinth, otherwise these items would have been picked up long ago. Suddenly, a few shining objects caught Jim's attention. He quickly rushed over and started searching through them. It turned out to be 3 velvet gems, although 2 of them were very small. Baby Snake looked at him in a way that seemed he had never seen the world before, indicating that along the way, he had seen many stones like this. This suddenly made Jim smell the scent of money. He excitedly grabbed Baby Snake and shook it. He immediately got up to go search. But just as he ran halfway, he suddenly realized his own secret chamber defenses were still so weak. What should we do if monsters come to steal while we are away? But soon he had an idea. That is simply to upgrade the secret room with these gemstones without hesitation. Just do it. He ran straight to the platform and threw the gems into the altar. With the prompt from the system, Jim finally realized. Did he just consume the valuable gem again? Worth tens of millions. He has successfully moved one step further away from his small goal. Now he finally understands why humans, knowing that the underground labyrinth is very dangerous, still flock to it, even risking their lives for it. Since it's so interesting here, and I'm bored to death lately anyway, then I'll have a good time playing big in this underground labyrinth. revive the glory of the Garo Empire. The man was accidentally bitten by a snake on his arm 7 inches. He unexpectedly inherited an ancient Garo tribe labyrinth. At the same time, he also got these 6 adorable pets that are short and small. However, in this labyrinth, there is only a broken chair. The rest is just air. Even the mice that come in have to cry and go back. In order to turn the situation around, he gritted his teeth and sacrificed a few velvet gems. According to Swindler, those are gems worth tens of millions. Shortly after the upgrade of Labyrinth, there was a prompt. Now there are 2 types of units that can be summoned. The first type is called Garo Guard, praised as the fearless ones. They are skilled in various combat techniques. The second type belongs to a managerial unit with high intelligence. They can handle labyrinth affairs and lead troops in battle, but are weak in combat, being purely intellectual workers. Both types of units are urgently needed by Jim. However, the only thing that bothers him is the summoned soldiers require a certain amount of gem consumption every month. This makes him even more eager to get velvet gem. Now he can only live frugally to make ends meet. With his call, a spatial rift appeared out of thin air in front of him. After a dazzling white light, in front of him stood a fierce Garo guard. This set of weapons and equipment is capable of both attacking and defending in battle. It looks quite reliable. Immediately, he gave orders to the Garo guard to guard the warehouse. This guy's huge build. I estimate he could push through levels 1 to 3 of the underground labyrinth by himself. Then he used up 2 lower-class gems to summon management-type troops. Another spatial crack appeared in front of him. Suddenly, things seemed a bit off. The crack in front of him was unexpectedly large. The control system also popped up a prompt at this moment. Due to the activation of the mysterious geyser, the one summoned this time will be a hero-level figure. Administrator Dominic. Before Jim could react, a graceful figure appeared in front of him. What's going on? Is this a maid outfit or a Lolita outfit? Call up the control interface. He realized that the person in front of him was extraordinary. This is a true management genius dedicated to helping the master handle all kinds of tasks. At this moment, Jim remains impassive. But in reality, he inwardly sighs with relief at having struck gold this time. It seems that the days of driving a Ferrari single-handedly are not far away for oneself. So he immediately began to arrange the task at hand. Let's call you Domi in the future because the name Dominic is too long. Later, he shared the map information with Domi after some investigation. Near the Garo Labyrinth, there are not only mineral veins, but also plants that can produce velvet gems. In order to come up with a reasonable maintenance plan, the two decided to conduct an on-site investigation first. After a thorough on-site survey, Domi proposed many schemes beneficial for the development of the Garo Labyrinth, such as breaking through the fragile cave walls, shortening the distance to the vein, and setting up collecting stations along the way. At the same time, she made arrangements for the harvesting of velvet gems near the geyser. Of course, since she has come, she naturally wanted to harvest the gem that had already formed. Jim looked on in astonishment, secretly giving her a thumbs up. She is someone who knows how to live. This behavior of not picking up money when going out is considered a loss. Isn't it an excellent quality of a manager? There are defense installations. The details such as drinking water supply are well planned. Of course, to accomplish all these tasks, a large number of personnel is needed. Therefore, she suggests Jim to increase manpower and upgrade the labyrinth as soon as possible. But Jim just wants to be a figurehead. He plans to leave all these trivial matters to Domi to handle. After all, he can't be watching over Labyrinth all the time. Little did he know, both suggestions made by Domi are things only the owner of Labyrinth can handle. Even with her high level, she cannot substitute. This suddenly made Jim realize there is a fatal problem. If he does not serve as a good master, will these Garo people leave him or rebel? Upon hearing this, Domi assured Jim not to worry too much. Even if a monster harms the master of the labyrinth, It cannot inherit the labyrinth, because only those chosen by the labyrinth can become its master. So no Garo people would be foolish enough to overthrow the royal family that protects them. In this way, Jim finally has a rough understanding. He consumes another 3 intermediate gems to upgrade the labyrinth. He also returns to the surface and arrives at Swindler's shop. He plans to sell the velvet gem in his hand. During the period, Swindler subtly tried to learn about the origin of the gem, but Jim managed to sidestep the issue with just a few words. But Swindler is not planning to give up, because now there is a gem brought back by the explorer from the underground labyrinth. The gems are becoming scarcer, so he has always been in a situation of high demand and short supply. Swindler said that he would provide Jim with information about the underground labyrinth for free. But he needs Jim to prioritize selling the gem to him after obtaining it. Jim is indeed very interested in Swindler's proposition. Swindler then provided him with some information. Inside the underground labyrinth in the P State, there is a group of infernal spiders there, and there are rumors that they have the velvet gem. The transaction went smoothly this time, just as Jim was about to take the money and leave. The swindler said, "Young man, I know you have a family to support." Upon hearing this, Jim was suddenly furious. He turned around and punched with all his might. He angrily smashed the big counter in front of the swindler, and the counter shattered with a loud noise. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He said sinisterly, "How dare you investigate my background?" The parents of the baby were humans, who had once ventured into the underground labyrinth. The child they gave birth to was raised by monsters, drinking monster milk as they grew up. From the age of 3, these children were driven away by the monsters. He dug tunnels in the perilous labyrinth. Everyone run, damn it. He actually dug into the nest of the infernal spider. "Please help me. Please save me." Jim suddenly woke up from a nightmare, his face turning pale. He looked like he was weak and bloodless. Domi, frightened, quickly approached to inquire about the situation. Jim said it was just a nightmare about the past. In fact, he has always been taboo about letting others know about his past, so he did not want to say much. Unexpectedly, as he looked up, his eyes happened to meet the gaze of this group of adorable pets. From their clear eyes, revealed a hint of silliness. This made Jim feel particularly at ease. Couldn't help but scratch his head and smile. His mood also became less tense and relaxed. He then ordered Domi to strengthen the guard around the labyrinth. If the presence of infernal spiders is discovered, it must be reported immediately. At this moment, Domi reminds that the labyrinth has successfully been upgraded to level 3. Upon hearing this, Jim immediately became interested. He opened the control interface. He found that 6 Garo workers were summoned again. At the same time, the core of the labyrinth had been successfully unlocked. The moment it was clicked open, a 100-pound iron lump fell from the sky and landed in front of everyone. But this clumsy appearance really doesn't look good at all. At this moment, Domi noticed something unusual about Jim. She immediately started explaining the core of the labyrinth to him. If the core is destroyed, the entire Garo labyrinth will malfunction. Of course, if it remains intact. Even if the Garo labyrinth is razed to the ground in battle, with it, everything can be restored. Jim's attention was suddenly caught by a pop-up window. It displayed that the core had been activated. Monsters in the distance all sensed the presence of the labyrinth. Unexpectedly, a warning followed closely. It indicated a group of 20 horned rats rushing towards the labyrinth. They are expected to arrive in 59 minutes. Upon seeing this, Jim immediately felt a little flustered. He quickly shared the information with Domi to seek a solution. Domi's proposed solution is to summon a sufficient number of combat units immediately, because at present they only have 1 Garo guard stationed at the warehouse. Jim summoned the control interface. After creating the level 3 labyrinth, 4 new types of troops were indeed added. They are the Garo archer, known for their accurate shooting skills. The mighty Garo berserker with extraordinary combat power, the Garo mage known for their excellent magic skills, and the Garo cleric with the ability to heal wounds with skilled hands. These unit types cover various aspects and are all very powerful. Of course, they also require a large amount of gems to use. But right now, you only have 21 gems on hand. How should you summon units efficiently? Just as Jim was troubled by this, Domi reminded him that the Horned Rat's actual combat power is not high. A Garo guard can single-handedly take on 4 Horned Rats. A Berserker or a Cleric is equivalent to 2 Garo guards. The combat power of an archer corresponds to 3 Garo guards. Mages correspond to 5 Garo guards. She also emphasized that apart from Berserkers, the other unit types have weak melee attacks. So it is important to pay attention to the unit composition. Through Domi's easy-to-understand comparison, Jim had an idea in his mind instantly. With limited time, he immediately started summoning. After a flash of sparks with lightning, 2 figures exuding a strong sense of oppression appeared before the crowd. A total of 1 Garo guard and 2 Garo berserkers were summoned, their imposing figures indeed too formidable. However, the Garo guard that was summoned together could only dodge to the side, trembling in fear. Jim was also delighted to see this, and instinctively sought validation. He even felt the urge to immediately lead Garo Berserker to find Wolfape to avenge their previous humiliation. Suddenly, he noticed that a baby snake seemed somewhat resentful. Now is the time to prepare for battle. Such emotions cannot be tolerated. Domi provided a clear explanation for this. Baby snake is actually a subspecies of these high-level warriors. The stronger the subspecies, like the Garo people, the higher the chances of their birth. Although the subspecies moves slowly and lacks willpower, they exhibit remarkable endurance and strength. So they are very reliable as logistic personnel. Upon hearing this, Jim suddenly understood. He immediately ordered the assembly of all Garo logistics personnel. Domi was also deeply puzzled by this. Unexpectedly, Jim picked up the hoe standing in the corner. I know that the Garo tribe values honor the most. Currently, our Garo labyrinth is about to experience the first battle. At this glorious moment, all Garo people should participate regardless of any distinctions between them. Even a hoe can become a weapon for the warriors at this time. Upon hearing the words, the unhappy Garo baby snake's eyes suddenly regained their spirit. Jim looked at baby snake with encouraging eyes. It was eager for glory, and eager to fight for Garo. Following that, Jim raised his arm and called out, "Let's kill all those bastards who dare to invade the Garo labyrinth. Kill them all!" Instantly morale soared and blood boiled among all members. The mouse is not afraid of bloodline suppression. It only thinks about eating snakes in its mind. Just because it wants to lead the Horned Rat clan, standing at the top of the underground food chain. They want to break free from the identity of underground laborers and achieve the status of prey for other predators. In Garo Labyrinth, Jim is also making final mobilizations for the upcoming battle. 3 miles away from Garo Labyrinth, a thick smoke could be seen rising. Vaguely visible were the weapons being held upright in the ranks. After this aggressively approaching team got closer, it turned out to be a group of mice with long horns on their heads. The leading Horned Rat saw that there were only 3 Garo baby snakes standing at the entrance of the Garo Labyrinth. He was immediately overjoyed, guessing that the new owner of this Garo Labyrinth was a foolish noob who didn't know how to create troops. My horns are the biggest, so I am the smartest. You all have to believe me and listen to me. In front of us, there is a nest of baby snakes in this labyrinth. Let's charge in and eat them. Then your horns will become as big as mine. This sentence is like a drop of water falling into a hot oil pan, instantly igniting the fiery passion of all the Horned Rats present. Their minds are filled with images of growing bigger and longer. Immediately after, the Horned Rats, in a frenzy, followed the direction that Ricky pointed. They shouted and charged towards the Garo Labyrinth. The 3 baby snakes that were arranged at the entrance as bait were already trembling in fear. They have brought shame to the Garo tribe. They forcefully suppressed the urge to turn and run away. Suddenly, a horned rat leaped up first. The long sword in its hand was about to draw first blood. Unexpectedly, a figure shot out from the side. In the blink of an eye, he had already moved several meters away. Wherever he passed, not a single horned rat was left unscathed. Blood splattered on the spot. Join me in defending the honor of Garo, brave companions. As soon as the words fell, 2 Garo guards instantly stood behind Jim. At the same time, the Garo berserker, wielding a 40-meter-long machete, blocked horned rat's retreat like a god. This is the tactic devised by Jim. They are going to trap the horned rat group from the front and back, blocking them in the narrow entrance passage. They charged forward from both sides at the same time, crazily harvesting the lives of the horned rat. The sudden change in the battle situation caught Ricky off guard. However, it suddenly recalled the words of the man in black robes, who approached it a few days ago. If the horned rat clan wants to break free from the identity of laborers in the labyrinth, and the fate of being eaten due to their weakness, there is a rare opportunity at hand. The man in black robes informed Ricky of the location of the labyrinth and instructed that as long as the control core inside the labyrinth is devoured, it will be able to become the new owner of the Garo labyrinth. At this moment, Ricky suddenly had a goal. Through the gap between the Garo guards, it saw the location of the labyrinth's core. So it gathered the horned rats around it and deployed a battle plan. They then began to act separately. Just saw Ricky taking the lead and charging toward the entrance of the labyrinth. The other horned rats were also inspired by the sight. They launched a fierce feint attack against the 2 Garo guards. Sure enough, under the fearless protection of the horned rat, Ricky carries the hopes of the horned rat clan. It successfully broke through the defense line of the Garo guard and entered the interior of the labyrinth. Domi reacted quickly, loudly calling for Jim to fall back. However, Jim turned back indifferently, his eyes filled with a bloodthirsty intent. He snatched the knife from Garo guard's hands. He lightly stepped on his toes and leaped up, running towards the labyrinth. Unexpectedly, Ricky's skills were impressive as well. He dodged the obstacles on the road and swiftly approached, having already bypassed the layers of hindrances from the baby snake. In the twinkling of an eye, the blade carried a sharp whistling sound as it sliced through the air. In an instant, the area around the core of the labyrinth was engulfed in billowing smoke and dust from the impact. Unexpectedly, as soon as Jim landed, he received an alert that the core of the labyrinth had been damaged. He looked up at the core of the labyrinth again, only to find Ricky impaled on the platform by a knife hole, but its fangs in its mouth still unwillingly poised to bite towards the core. Jim couldn't stand it. He went up and gave it a good whack. It turns out that Jim's thrown knife caused damage to the core of the labyrinth. This is a bit embarrassing. This is almost a rhythm that could have killed oneself. On the other hand, with Ricky's death, the morale of the horned rat was severely hit. Resolving them is just a matter of time. At the same time, Jim also discovered that the Garo people are indeed fierce in combat. Due to the tail, their center of balance is particularly stable. This makes them not hindered by the bulkiness of their bodies. Instead, they are more agile and swift. If it were him facing such an enemy, he would probably find it difficult to deal with. At this moment, the battle is approaching its end. Little do they know that a figure in black robes has long been hiding in the dark, silently observing everything. In a certain location in the underground labyrinth, the man in black robes is kneeling, reporting the battle situation to a giant beast. The master has already ascertained that there are only 5 combat units in the Garo labyrinth, consisting of 1 hero-level unit and 4 ordinary soldiers. And their master seems to be just an ignorant rookie. Although they pose no threat to us now, they consider themselves descendants of dragons, claiming that even with impure bloodlines, they can also dominate in this underground world. This man in black robes seems to have some intention of sowing discord. The gigantic beast on the throne was indeed angered and let out a low growl. It ordered the man in black robes to organize another team of monsters to launch an attack. This mouse actually wants to swallow this bead in order to make its antlers bigger and longer. Sure enough, the final outcome can only be death. After the battle ended, the control system quickly compiled the data. Unfortunately, due to Horned Rat being too weak, Jim did not receive any substantial rewards. Instead, due to the tactical arrangements of flanking from the front and back, he gained a slight increase in charm points. He was awarded the title of Junior Commander. This battle also sounded an alarm in Jim's heart. He even felt fortunate. His first opponent was this group of weak horned rats. The Garo Labyrinth is located in the geyser area. There must be strong enemies lurking around. He originally intended to play defensively and develop, slowly revealing his fangs afterwards. Who knows now the appearance of the core of the labyrinth? It exposed the existence of the Garo Labyrinth. This made Jim inexplicably restless. He must quickly develop and become stronger. With a series of instructions issued by him, suddenly, the entire labyrinth began to operate in an orderly manner. At the same time, he also has many plans that need to be refined and developed. But all of these require a large number of gems. However, the gems collected from plants and veins are simply not enough. Suddenly inspired, I remembered the horns on the head of the horned rat. Perhaps you can get some money from the swindler to buy gems. Unexpectedly, when he arrived at the swindler's place, he was doused with a bucket of cold water. Because the value of this horn is not great, the purchase price is not ideal. Unfortunately, he could only go to swindler again. Listen for news about Infernal Spider. He was informed that the first expedition team to Infernal Spider had unexpectedly set off. If he wants to join again, he will need to provide proof of ranking. Only then can he join the main lineup. What is your rank, young man? If you have the required rank, I can help you apply for a spot through my connections. The old man has even conducted a background check on me. I don't know my rank. Actually, even Jim himself is not sure about this issue. He only knows that he was born and raised in the 12th level underground. It is governed by a Duke-class monster in the labyrinth. Upon hearing this, Swindler was immediately stunned, and the shock on her face was hard to conceal. You are probably the player with the highest level in the underground dungeon in the country at level 12. Jim was puzzled by Swindler's reaction. What's so surprising about level 12 that it could make such a fuss? Swindler seemed genuinely clueless about the classification of underground levels. He then picked up a pen, planning to educate him on the matter. But his artistic skills were so lifelike that no one could understand. He explained that these were the children who came out from levels 1 to 3. When they grow up, they are only slightly stronger than adult men. They can only work as guides in the exploration team. The strength of children from levels 4 to 6 when they grow up. They can serve as members of the assault team. They are considered to have the strength comparable to Captain America. From level 7 to 9, it's remarkable. That's where the monster territory begins. Children who can grow up and survive there correspond to the strength of the Hulk. Below level 10, it's unimaginable. The monsters there are all on the level of Thanos. So far, no assault team has been able to penetrate. Simply put, the children from deeper levels are stronger. They have special abilities that are different from ordinary people in terms of strength, speed, or other aspects. Speaking of this, he asked with interest if Jim has any special skills, such as breathing fire or having laser eyes. Jim saw him making fun of himself like this. He instantly shot a cold glare at the swindler. He coldly said, "In my eyes, your whole body is a weakness. In less than a second, I can send you to report to the underworld in advance." Stop, stop, stop! Young man, hold on. It's just a joke. Don't take it seriously. After all, he still remembers that Jim can easily smash his desk to pieces. He quickly changed the topic, saying he would declare it as soon as possible to get Jim into the main team. Unexpectedly, Jim didn't want to attract attention. He just wanted to be declared as a level 7 entry. Swindler did not dare to ask more, and readily agreed to it. He will first arrange the affairs of the Garo labyrinth for the near future. Because he estimates that he will not be able to return until 2 weeks later, he asked Domi to bring the gems collected these days. He threw all the gems into the altar. He summoned a Garo archer, but it looked ridiculous with its eyes covered by tattered cloth. Are you sure it's not here to be funny? Alright, since it's here, let's have it guard the gate first. He also left 2 gems in the tent for Domi to use for daily maintenance. At this time, Jim asked Domi, "Can this portal be opened and closed at will? Or adjusted in size? After all, it seems a bit inconvenient for this door to be always open like this." The man was originally a powerful level 12 expert. Yet he has to lurk in the expedition team, working as a level 7 rookie porter, simply because he only has 2 meager gems left in his account. At this moment, Jim has already sneaked into the besieged entrance of the P-State Underground Labyrinth. Main force of Infernal Spider. Claire, the woman wielding a large machete, is the leader of this squad. This mission requires all Infernal Spiders on the 2nd level of the labyrinth to be killed within 2 weeks. The team consists of 7 main members. An additional 15 ordinary assault team members are provided as support. Once the head count was confirmed, they immediately set off in full gear. As the entrance gate of the labyrinth slowly opened, Captain Claire emphasized to the team members once again, "Be sure to follow orders. And we need to pass through the 1st level of the labyrinth quickly." They need to reach the 2nd level to join forces with the advance team for the battle. Unexpectedly, the team encountered obstacles right from the start. The appearance of the whiptail lizard in front of them. In an instant, it devoured one of the team members. Captain Claire quickly organized the team members to respond. However, these main forces were calmly smoking and joking on the side. It had been rumored that the current strength of the Special Forces team members had declined. "I didn't expect it to be so unbearable." Before the yellow-haired man could finish his sentence, the sound of a blade being unsheathed caught his attention. This guy seems to be a level 7 rookie brought in by the captain. In the meantime, Jim leaped into the air and slashed at the lizard's neck with a knife. Instantly, a horrifying wound was left on the lizard's body. Captain Claire is also experienced and adept at seizing opportunities in battle. She ordered the assault team members to direct all firepower towards the lizard's wound. The crisis was resolved shortly afterwards. However, the team member who was eaten had already passed away due to severe injuries. Claire sighed deeply at this. She quickly adjusted her mood and immediately started to rearrange the personnel. She had to lead the team to evacuate before the smell of blood spread. She immediately turned around to pick a fight with Jim afterwards. "Your skills are quite impressive. Whiptail lizard tough skin, but you can easily break through it." But the conversation suddenly changed. "If you don't follow instructions and act recklessly next time, I will kick you out of the team." It's a typical combination of benevolence and authority. But Jim doesn't buy into her approach at all. He replied that he is just following his heart. In order to avoid conflicts and differences, Claire can only patiently explain. "The 7 of us must preserve our strength as the main force of the team. Because the upcoming battle, regular assault squad members simply cannot handle it." Jim also agreed with her statement and stopped talking. A week later, they finally arrived at the entrance to the 2nd underground level. The whole team stopped first. They did some simple replenishment and rest. Suddenly, a team member responsible for standing guard around the area noticed something unusual. It seemed that something fell and hit his helmet. The team member picked it up and found out that it was a valuable velvet gem. This discovery immediately attracted a crowd of onlookers. Each one of them was exhilarated. This is a chance to get rich. But why would the gem fall from the cave roof? The team member who returned from patrol on the other side is reporting to the captain, Claire. The mission of the patrol team was originally to search for the markers left by the advance team, to facilitate timely rendezvous and coordinate with the rear for combat. However, when following the marks and searching to a certain location along the way, they suddenly disappeared. Judging from the traces left at the scene, it is determined that the advance team must have encountered a spider, and the battle was quite intense. At the same time, it was also discovered that a gem fell from the top. Strangely, when a team member tried to pick up the gem, their body was immobilized in midair. Upon hearing this, Claire immediately realized the seriousness of the situation. She quickly rushed to the scene with her team. Indeed, it was as described. One of the commandos hung in the air like a puppet on a string, in a strange and eerie position. She immediately ordered all personnel to be on high alert and prepared for battle as if facing a major enemy. At the same time, she ordered the launch of illumination flares towards the cave ceiling. One flare was launched, revealing humanoid cocoons hanging upside down on the ceiling. This caused everyone present to have their hair stand on end instantly. Claire forced herself to remain calm. In a deep voice, she ordered there to be only 10 bodies here. There should be other members of the advance team still alive. Hurry and evacuate from this place to regroup. Just as she was speaking, unbeknownst to her, a spider had quietly appeared behind her. The teammates' startled cries alerted her to the emergency situation behind her. Without thinking too much, she tightened her grip on the large knife in her hand and swiftly turned around, instantly beheading the spider. The assault team reacted quickly without hesitation, opening up their folding defense shields. At the same time, they swiftly and orderly regrouped, forming a closed formation. The main team members all displayed their weapons one after another, creating a defensive line on the periphery to protect them. When the illumination flare went out in an instant, the spider's attacks followed one after another. Jim immediately flashed behind Claire to block with a knife. He instantly felt the knife tremble. Sparks flew in an instant. Launch a flare quickly. Just as the words fell, the second flare was launched. However, a spider quietly appeared behind it. A large group of spiders was slowly descending along the silk threads. To these spiders, this team seemed most suitable for becoming mummified in this manner. However, facing a giant spider can bring immense and oppressive despair to people, but not to the hell babies. Because from the moment they can remember things, they have been struggling to survive in despair. The man with yellow hair had a cruel and bloodthirsty smile on his face. His figure leaped up. With a long knife in hand, he swiftly took down the first opponent with a flick of his wrist. Immediately, he took advantage of the downward momentum to ruthlessly stab down with his knife, nailing another opponent to the ground. At this moment, a spider suddenly leaped from the side and pounced towards him. This came just in time. The yellow-haired man quickly drew in his leg to tighten his core strength. In an instant, he kicked and thrust simultaneously with both feet, sending it flying. Teammate Nolan also did not back down. Holding dual knives, he took care of one as well. He immediately kicked the ground hard again. He fired at the spider in the air, his knife moves opening and closing in a grand manner. In an instant, he severed and cut off the spider's limbs. The spider, losing its legs, rolled on the ground like a ball. Then Nolan crushed its head with one kick. The sophisticated tall guy on the other side was quite unexpected. He relied on brute force to output madness. So basically, with him, it's one punch per spider. His way of fighting is even more overbearing and unreasonable, dragging and pulling forcefully. The whole scene is most exciting when he plays. The elegant man holding a flower sword next to the tall guy is also worth paying attention to. Wearing a padded jacket in the middle of summer may seem somewhat puzzling. But elegance is always timeless. This does not affect the 10-cross sword flowers trembling in his hand at all. His movements are smooth, elegant, and full of European aristocratic atmosphere. In the end, he even scolded the tall guy for stealing his kill, which prevented him from enjoying it to the fullest. Their casual banter and jokes made the nervous SWAT team member beside them suspicious, wondering if they had come to the wrong set. Please, we are being surrounded by a large group of spiders. Suddenly, a mutation occurred out of the blue. Two large spiders suddenly leaped from the side and pounced on the assault team. At this moment, a figure swiftly shot past, instantly dismembering the spiders. The figure then landed directly among the group of spiders, only to see a black light flash in Jim's eyes. He immediately moved like a swimming dragon, charging and striking through the spider group. Every strike landed on the weak points of the spiders. Is this guy still human? Is there still justice? Whoever dares to say he is a level 7 newbie, I will kill him. The others stopped their hands. They stared blankly as Jim solos by himself. Soon, the spider was almost completely eliminated. But it left Claire deeply puzzled, feeling that something was not right. According to records, the infernal spider belongs to the powerful monsters in the deep layers of the underground labyrinth. They have never appeared on the second floor, so very little is known about them. But logically speaking, monsters living in the depths of the labyrinth should all have strong abilities. Now they have been easily resolved by them. It seems very unreasonable. Claire's statement quickly gained everyone's agreement. Because from the battle just now, it can be felt. These spiders are weaker compared to the whiptail lizard encountered on the first floor. But some people also comfort everyone not to overthink. Because this time, he has prepared enough bombs to deal with it. So whether the infernal spider comes or not doesn't matter. Unexpectedly, Jim made a new discovery. Through his identification, it turns out that the spiders that were just killed were not infernal spiders. These spiders not only have a small size, but also thin skin and fragile bones. They should belong to a subspecies of infernal spiders, or perhaps a lower-ranking species. Moreover, their fighting styles are different. The infernal spider is like a patient hunter. They set traps and then wait patiently for their prey to get caught, rather than actively attacking. When Jim turned around, he unintentionally noticed something unusual around him. He didn't know when it started, but many thick spider silk threads were hanging from the cave ceiling. He also found the entrance to the second level of the labyrinth. The place was already covered with spider webs. It seemed like something was intentionally blocking their way out. He was suddenly filled with a chilling sensation and a sense of foreboding. He realized that the infernal spider was nearby, and they have already been quietly setting up their plans. He patiently waits for them to fall into the trap. He immediately found the demolitions expert, asking him to bury the explosives at the entrance of the second floor as soon as possible. He warned his teammates to stay vigilant at all times. The battle was not over, as the infernal spider was lurking nearby. However, the yellow-haired man thought that Jim was just being mysterious. Claire also had doubts. Why did Jim know so much about the infernal spider? In fact, Jim should be the only one among their group who has seen and knows about the infernal spider. Just as Claire was about to ask him to clarify, a scream caught everyone's attention. Looking in the direction of the sound, there was only Elegant Swordsman in front. Suddenly, an incredibly huge spider appeared. Jim hurriedly shouted for him to escape. This was indeed the real infernal spider. But Elegant Swordsman seemed to have just been injured by the infernal spider. At this moment, his mind was filled with only thoughts of killing the spider to vent his anger. He paid no attention to Jim's dissuasion. Unexpectedly, in that split second of distraction, his body was instantly pierced through by Chella, hanging on it like a torn cloth. In the fleeting moment of dilated pupils, Elegant Swordsman probably never dreamed that the final image of his life would be this gaping mouth dripping with blood. As a master-level martial artist, his sword movements were also simple and unadorned. Yet, due to underestimating his opponent's strength, he was pierced through by the monster's claw, ultimately becoming food in the mouth of the infernal spider, accompanied by a piercing howl from the infernal spider. In the depths of the silent and dark labyrinth, echoes of countless rustling sounds can be heard. In an instant, numerous spiders of various sizes slowly emerged from the darkness. Claire immediately turned around and ordered all personnel to gather urgently. Unexpectedly, it was already too late as casualties had occurred in the team. However, the scene before their eyes seemed so familiar to Jim, because this scene had occurred in his childhood. this deeply ingrained in his mind, accompanying him through countless sleepless nights in his childhood. Suddenly, Claire's questioning interrupted Jim's thoughts. It seems like your judgment was correct. What are you staring at? Quickly regroup and prepare for battle. Upon hearing this, Jim stared at Claire as if she were a fool. Thinking about facing the enemy head-on was as good as handing them the victory. However, he restrained himself and analyzed the current situation for her. Not only is there a spider emperor, but also 2 commanding infernal spiders and countless low-level spider subordinates. With our small group, winning is absolutely impossible. The only way is to quickly make use of the bombs to gain more time for retreat. Don't worry that the explosion will cause the cave to collapse. The infernal spider should have been on the cave roof, covered in tough spider silk. Seeing this, Claire was confident. The level 7 newbie in front of her not only understood the infernal spider, but also seemed to have experience dealing with it. On the other side, the other main team members have already engaged with the spider at this point. But the number of spiders is so overwhelming that it's despairing. What is the purpose of the advanced team that went in early? Why are there so many spiders left unresolved? Are you stupid? The advanced team has become dried meat hanging above your head. The rest probably have been eaten. He immediately turned his head and urged the assault team to hurry up and bury the bombs. But the cultured big guy didn't think so. He believed that there was no need to be afraid if you felt unjust and just act on it. There is no need to pay attention to the one pretending to be a spider expert. It's just something said by a level 7 newbie. The original purpose of entering the underground labyrinth mission was to eliminate the infernal spider. There is no reason to flee upon discovering the target. At this moment, Jim in the front line fighting the spiders turned around. Startled, he warned that the infernal spider was about to attack. It came just in time. We were just waiting for it. He exerted force under his feet and leaped fiercely. He shot towards the infernal spider like a human cannonball. Jim was furious and exasperated. Indeed, it's impossible to persuade someone who wants to die. At this moment, the tall man had leaped close, gathering all his strength into his fist. The heavy blow fell heavily on the spider's head with great force and weight. A crisp sound. The big guy's arm broke with a bone spur piercing through the skin. The excruciating pain spread throughout his body in an instant, making him unable to help but let out a heart-wrenching scream. But the moment of the miserable scream came to a sudden halt, because by then, he had already been pierced through by the spider. The next moment, he was cruelly devoured by the infernal spider in front of everyone's eyes. Just as the yellow-haired man and Nolan were shocked by the scene before them, unexpectedly, another infernal spider suddenly leaped towards the two of them in the blink of an eye. Jim rushed out from the side and wielded his knife to block Chella. He then raised his knife and positioned himself in front of the yellow-haired man and Nolan, with black light flashing in his eyes. Jim's actions were no different from a spider seizing its prey, instantly stirring up the enraged beastly nature of the infernal spider. Several sharp Chella, accompanied by a strong wind, stabbed towards him rapidly. He only saw him bend his waist, and immediately the movements in his hands were as fast as lightning. Waving the knife, shadows filled the sky, blocking each spider one by one. Level 7 masters, please accept this person's knees. When he came to his senses, he realized that the yellow-haired man had already dashed away into the distance. Returning to the battlefield, Jim dodged the passing attack of Chella by crouching down, then quickly stood up and swung his sword to block Chella's attempt to counterstrike. Suddenly, a glimpse of movement from the side made him feel uneasy. That was close. Jim narrowly escaped being smashed into a pancake by another infernal spider that leaped up for a surprise attack. He forcibly stabilized his mind to adjust his own state. Because at this moment, he is facing a pincer attack from two commanding level infernal spiders. It seems that he needs to reveal some of his hidden cards in order to deal with the current situation. In an instant, Jim was suddenly surrounded by flickering electrical arcs, with a remarkable momentum. He took a big step forward and slashed at the infernal spider with his knife. Letting you leak a card is not the same as letting you leak electricity. At this moment, Claire also received a report that the explosive package was ready. She decisively ordered to detonate immediately. With the explosion of the bomb, others are quickly entering the passage to retreat from Labyrinth Floor 1. Don't forget to notify Jim to escape together. Who would have thought that the moment the words fell, Jim flashed in front of them. He immediately knocked Claire into the passage behind him. However, the attack by the infernal spider quickly followed with a claw swipe. But Jim was faster and instantly leaped into the air. He also caught the machete dropped by Claire in passing. Next, he twisted his body. Taking advantage of the momentum, he lifted his foot and kicked the huge stone at the top of the cave entrance. The huge stone shattered and fell with a loud crash. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Claire was the first to realize his intention. He was trying to block the passage with the huge stone to buy time for everyone to escape. He hurriedly shouted to stop him from going together. It's impossible for him alone to defeat the infernal spider. No matter how he shouted for Jim, he didn't pay any attention. The huge rock that fell quickly sealed the passage tightly. Jim slowly turned around with dual swords in his hands. Facing two terrifying infernal spiders with indifference and no fear in his eyes, it finally quieted down. "So let me find some fun," he said, as a dazzling electric light suddenly burst out from his body. The space in front seemed unable to withstand this soaring electric pressure, and shattered in response. The next moment, the Garo labyrinth under his control appeared startlingly, led by Domi. It seems that the violent gang has been waiting for a long time. In the underground labyrinth, a spider that has been hungry for 18 years glows with a hungry red light in its eyes. Seeing the spiders surrounding them, Jim quickly arranges his troops. 2 Garo berserkers are assigned to deal with them. One of them leads the spiders. The rest of the Garo tribe berserkers' task is to guard the palace gates. The only thing currently troubling Jim is the huge spider emperor, but fortunately, the narrow passages of the labyrinth's second floor restrict its movement. So far, it has not made any reckless moves, fearing a collapse and being buried alive. This is also why Jim dares to stay and negotiate with the infernal spider. Take advantage of the spider emperor being unable to move. Quickly get rid of these little spiders first. At the same time, the spiders have already leaped and pounced towards them. Just as Jim's pupils flashed with white light, electric arcs instantly surrounded his body. In an instant, he had leaped into the air with 2 knives in hand. One knife, with great force, fiercely chopped towards the head of the spider leader. Unexpectedly, as another spider leader attempted to sneak attack from behind, a lightning-fast arrow suddenly shot through, accurately hitting the spider's head. Although the appearance of Archer with the cloth-covered eyes is puzzling, his accuracy is indeed impressive. Following that, Archer quickly nocked an arrow and drew the bowstring. The arrow he shot exploded like a cannonball. The arrow scattered the group of spiders in all directions. The scene on the Garo berserker side is relatively relaxed. The leader of the spiders was beaten by the 2 of them. It was thrown to the ground and couldn't recover in time. It had already fallen to the ground and given up resistance. The performance of the Garo people. Jim silently watched. Their overall performance was better than he had expected. Of course, it may have something to do with the cheerleading squad organized by Domi. Organized division of labor in combat. Jim also had fun abusing the Spider Emperor a little bit. Careful, the Spider Emperor has started to act. Thanks to Domi's alarm. When Jim came to his senses, he only felt the overwhelming pressure coming from all directions. His body instinctively leaped aside just in time to narrowly avoid it. As he rolled over and looked up, only then did he realize that the terrifying blow just now was actually just the Spider Emperor extending its cella. The Spider Emperor must have sensed the weakness of the Spider Leader, prompting it to intervene. Suddenly, the Spider Emperor let out a loud, mournful howl. The sound waves shook to the core, causing Jim to panic and cover his ears to resist. At that moment, a system pop-up window appeared, displaying the roar of the Spider Emperor. It brought the combat power of the spider colony back to its peak. Can we still play like this? He immediately turned and looked towards the entrance of the Garo labyrinth. Sure enough, the Garo guard was covered in spiders, and it looked like he was about to be overwhelmed. The Spider Emperor's combat power surged, as if it had taken adrenaline. Spotting a vulnerability, it cut off Berserker's arm with a claw, turning the once promising situation into a collapse amidst the cries of the Spider Emperor. Jim instantly made a decision that he must shut the Spider Emperor up. He immediately grabbed a knife and leaped up to chop towards the Spider Emperor. A sudden flash of a cross-shaped knife light flashed by. The Spider Emperor also fell down under this blow. He then anxiously inquired about the battle situation in the Domi Garo labyrinth. The master is barely holding on. There are simply too many subspecies of spiders. You must hold on and persevere for a while longer. Unexpectedly, the attacks from the Spider Emperor are coming one after another. But fortunately, Jim dodged in time. Otherwise, he would have been chopped off half of his body long ago. His repeated evasions made the Spider Emperor rotate his body shape. He turned his back to the Garo labyrinth. His brain was quickly working out a plan of action. He caught a glimpse of the magic summoned by a Garo baby snake unintentionally. He suddenly had an idea in his mind. While he was distracted, Spider Emperor's Chella attacked again. Jim quickly raised his sword to defend. He immediately dashed towards the direction of the Spider Emperor. The Spider Emperor, which had just been mercilessly abused by him, had lost its fighting power at this moment. Jim acted without hesitation, going straight up with a knife to sever its lower jaw. From this angle, you can see that there is a large velvet gem embedded in its upper jaw. He then reached out as if taking something from a bag and grabbed the gem. Just as he struggled to grab the gem, the venomous fangs of the Spider Emperor were also coming towards him. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from the smoke and dust. At this moment, Jim's eyes were sharp. He fiercely threw the gem in his hand. Just as a red light accompanied by a strong wind was rapidly shooting towards the labyrinth. It was past Domi in an instant, flying towards the altar of the labyrinth. The gem was absorbed by the altar in an instant. Jim immediately issued a summon, the command of Garo Mage. Immediately, a terrifying lightning struck down. A Garo Mage holding a staff slowly emerged. A gem worth 1 billion is stuck in the monster's jaws. The man, however, managed to pull out the gem with all his strength. He threw the gem towards the core of the labyrinth. Because the infernal spider leader's nest produced a top-quality velvet gem. So this time summoned. It turned out to be a rare-level Garo Mage. The Garo Mage raised his hands, and with his every move, a large magic circle appeared out of thin air. Immediately, a bone-chilling frost quickly spread out. This sudden freeze caused the tunnel, which was originally covered in spiders, to ice over. In the blink of an eye, all spiders except the Spider Emperor disappeared. They were all sealed within the ice spikes. A group of spiders that they struggled desperately against but couldn't resist, were easily dealt with by Mage with a flick of his fingers. The spider leader suddenly broke out of the ice, which really scared Berserker. He instinctively took a half-step back. By raising his knife to block and resist the sharp commissary of the two attacking, he resolved a life-threatening crisis. Unexpectedly, seeing the ambush failed, the spider leader immediately stretched out a limb from the side and rushed straight towards the back of Berserker's head. At the critical moment, Berserker only felt a white light flash by. The spider leader was unexpectedly split in half. Taking a closer look, the hand of Berserker, which was originally severed, was magically transformed into a fierce ice blade. I didn't expect Garo Mage to perform such a magical operation. Domi immediately reported the news of the spider leader's destruction to Jim. Very well, it is obvious that at this point the Spider Emperor is left alone. But Jim couldn't think of a good way to deal with it for a while. It's said that the eyes of the infernal spider. He knows the weaknesses such as the mouth, but the size of the Spider Emperor is indeed too large. Even if the Spider Emperor stands still and lets him poke its eyes, he cannot injure the brain and cause fatal damage. At present, he must create a condition for a one-hit kill to be successful. He ordered all Garo people to stand by in place. He is now going to attack the cave ceiling. He ordered to create a passageway leading to the lower level of the underground. He said this, and then swiftly leaped towards the cave ceiling. Although Domi didn't quite understand his plan, it was too dangerous to confront the Spider Emperor alone. However, Jim did not heed the advice, and continued to obstinately persist. Domi felt very self-reproachful about this. As a subordinate, he should have made every effort to protect his master. Now, she can only watch helplessly as her master ventures into danger alone. She can't help in any way. In her eyes, her master's actions are to prevent casualties among the Garo people. With Domi's thorough analysis, Jim's image instantly became towering among the Garo people. Jim's actions naturally caught the attention of the Spider Emperor. It immediately pounced towards him. "Good! I was worried you wouldn't follow." In the moment, the Spider Emperor pounced towards him. Jim's figure also leaped up in an instant. The speed at which he moved has left behind multiple afterimages. Narrow passageway ceiling. There, shattered stones fell from the passageway ceiling dug by the Spider Emperor Chella. Jim secretly delighted at the sight. Everything happening was within his expectations. He leaped up again, continuing to lead the Spider Emperor towards the cave ceiling. At the same time, earlier, as Jim protected the escaping group to the first level of the labyrinth, a sudden intense tremor occurred underfoot. Terrifyingly, the tremors were getting closer and closer to them, as if some colossal abyssal beast was about to emerge. Suddenly, the open space not far ahead of them twisted and cracked. The next second, two incredibly huge Chella burst out of the ground. The yellow-haired man and a few others were terrified, their livers and gallbladders almost rupturing, standing there dumbfounded. At this point, Jim also received a pop-up notification. A new passage between levels 1 and 2 has been opened. At the same time, he happened to see the backs of the yellow-haired man and a few others not far away. This confirmed that he had dug his way to another level. The Spider Emperor was stuck between the rocks of the first and second levels because the opening was too small. But you can't let it climb up one level. He immediately ordered Garo Mage to cast ice magic. With Garo Mage's chant, a lifelike frost giant snake suddenly appeared. It struck the Spider Emperor from bottom to top directly. From the frightened expression of the Spider Emperor, it is evident. It seems to have suffered extreme pain. Instantly, its whole body went limp and powerless, and its figure fell down. Because the cave wall was already covered with a smooth layer of ice, the fall of the Spider Emperor was particularly rapid. With a dull thud, the Spider Emperor fell heavily to the ground. Although Domi is not aware of Jim's specific plan, but she is now rushing forward. Holding down the Spider Emperor to prevent it from turning over is definitely right. With Domi's command, the Garos immediately became excited and displayed their unique abilities, rushing towards the Spider Emperor. The mage waved his magic wand, manipulating a rock to entwine the Spider Emperor. The two Garo berserkers then leaped to both sides, firmly suppressing the head of the Spider Emperor. And at the top of the 100-meter-high cave, Jim was already surrounded by electric arcs all over his body. He was ready to go, and in the next second, he pushed off forcefully with both feet. He shot towards the bottom of the second floor. In an instant, a dazzling starlight had already flashed before Spider Emperor. He wielded a big knife in his hand, enveloped in overwhelming power, and fiercely cleaved towards the head of Spider Emperor. The giant beast in front was suppressed by the relentless attacks of the Garo people. This allowed Jim to cleave its head with a single stroke. After the battle ended, the control system quickly calculated the data. Since the killed Spider Emperor is a Duke-class behemoth, and Jim's final blow achieved victory in an overpowering manner, so his charm is greatly enhanced. He was promoted to the rank of official commanding officer. The benefit of this is the combat instructions he issues, which can give the Garo warriors a 10% increase in combat power. Soldiers participating in this battle have all been promoted to 2-star ranks. The changes this brings are also beyond Jim's expectations. Originally unfriendly looking, Garo Berserker's appearance has become even more ferocious after the promotion. Their facial features all seem to have their own thoughts. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Berserker will grow into in the future. Unfortunately, the one-armed Berserker did not regenerate his arm due to promotion. Strangely, Garo Mage did not get promoted either. He truly deserves credit for this victory. Domi is quite clear about the reasons for this issue. Firstly, Mage needs a huge amount of experience to advance. Secondly, they also need to provide a well-equipped laboratory for Mage. So, currently, Garo Labyrinth needs to be upgraded to level 4. At that time, you will be able to establish a laboratory and forge. All problems will then be easily resolved. Okay, isn't it just gems? I have plenty of them. Killing this group of spiders should yield at least 20 to 30 of them. When he opened the control system, he found out that upgrading actually required 50 gems, causing Jim to widen his eyes in surprise. Just as he was about to complain, he noticed that Baby Snake was running towards him excitedly. Dozens of small and large velvet gems were all cleaned up and collected by Baby Snake from the battlefield. Who could have imagined that there would be so many of them? Jim was overjoyed at this moment. But he didn't show it on his face. He picked out 2 top-quality gems and threw them into the labyrinth. The core control system sent a prompt. It will reach level 4 in 120 hours. In that case, take advantage of these few days of downtime to rest on the ground. At the same time, in order to avoid suspicion, he picked out some lower-grade gems to take back. Just as Jim was about to leave, he immediately realized that he had made another major oversight, as a large-scale battle had just taken place. This is bound to attract the attention of nearby monsters and adventurers. I believe they will soon swarm to the scene. He instructed the Garo to clean up the battlefield as quickly as possible. All materials that can be harvested from the spiders should be stored in the warehouse. After he leaves, use magic to seal up all the entrances to prevent the exposure of the location of the labyrinth. His command shook the mage to the core. Domi saw this and immediately explained. The previous battle had depleted Mage's magical power. He was obviously exhausted. Now, it's even difficult for him to stand. Seeing this, Jim stopped pressuring him. He turned around and ordered a few berserkers to go and roll some boulders to block the door. After giving instructions, he proceeded to search for some supplies on the battlefield on his own. After all, it will take several days to return to the entrance of the first level of the labyrinth from here. At this moment, he found that Domi had been following behind him, looking hesitant and struggling to speak. He suddenly realized what was going on in his mind. This time, Domi really owes you a lot for your improvisation. You ordered to hold down the Spider Emperor's body, so it couldn't flip over. This made up for my incomplete plan. Upon hearing this, Domi immediately beamed with joy. To receive the master's affirmation was a great encouragement to her. In addition, the other participants, Garo included, all did very well. Feel free to ask for any rewards you want. I will fulfill them all when I come back in 5 days. Indeed, true feelings have never been able to retain. Only tactics can win people's hearts. Employers always motivate employees in this way. When Claire and a few others returned to the Peace State camp in a miserable state 5 days later, they found that Jim had arrived ahead of them. After that, Claire can inquire about the situation on the second floor of the labyrinth as she pleases. Jim joked around and avoided the issue. He expressed that he was lucky at that time. He successfully escaped from the spider's encirclement. After all, good luck is also part of one's ability. In the end, Claire really had no choice. He asked for Jim's contact information. The two agreed to act together if there is a mission next time. Soon after, Jim arrived at Swindler's shop. He sold a whole bag of low-grade gems to Swindler for 4 billion. This price naturally allows Swindler to make a huge profit. But he has a condition, that is to let Swindler find a remote place for him to stay. In response, Swindler readily agreed to return the favor. Inside the Garo labyrinth, everything is running as usual in an orderly manner. A spatial rift suddenly appeared beside Domi. Jim walked in dejectedly. It turned out that his foster father knew he was planning to move out, and as a result, lectured him all morning. Domi observed his facial expression and realized that he was feeling down. She then pondered on talking about some topics that Jim is interested in. She immediately hurried to inform Labyrinth that the upgrade was completed, unlocked a variety of buildings and personnel quotas, and Labyrinth has a guest waiting at the entrance at the moment. Jim was suddenly intrigued that there was another guest. Domi knows very little about this guest's background, only that their organization's influence is powerful enough to cover the entire underground labyrinth. They can freely move through every level of the labyrinth. As they spoke, the two of them had already walked up to this person. I only heard the slightly built guest humbly kneel on the ground. The black market merchant specially came to pay respects to the great ruler Garo. I am very much looking forward to the opportunity to gain your friendship and cooperation. This old weirdo serves as a black market merchant and sells everything. As long as you dare to pay, it can even chop off its horns on its head and sell them to you. Being approached by such a person, who has no idea where they came from, is inexplicable. Jim's inner instinct is resistant. He immediately bluntly asked the black market merchant how he found this place. Faced with Jim's unfriendly questioning, the black market merchant seemed unfazed and talked freely. It seems like this kind of situation is something it has dealt with many times. Nowadays, the brave Garo monarch. The feat of slaying the infernal spider has long been spread. Our organization admires you extremely. I am specially sent here, hoping to gain your friendship and cooperation. Jim was suddenly disinterested by the uninformative official response. He was just about to dismiss it. Just then, Jim received a voice message from Domi, black market merchant, their master, and they are free to move around the entire underground labyrinth and monitor everything that happens inside. There must be an extremely terrifying presence behind them. It is advisable to maintain boundaries. It's better to give it a picky and quirky image. Don't show too much friendliness, and let it underestimate you. Jim silently pondered for a moment upon seeing this. Tell me, what kind of cooperation do you intend to establish with me? Upon hearing this, the black market merchant joyfully lifted the parcel behind him. Immediately, it all spilled out onto the ground. There were quite a few things: various scrolls, gemstones, weapons, and some unknown bottles and jars. As you can see, we hope to establish friendly trade relations with you. However, Jim took a casual glance and didn't find anything rare. He was about to have the black market merchant exchange the batch of items when he was pulled aside by Domi. I know what you're thinking, master. If we just casually brush it off and send them away, it will definitely anger them. At that time, the black market merchant will spread our information everywhere. We may inexplicably become targets. In that case, it is very unfavorable for our current development. So we might as well cooperate with it for mutual benefit, because they do have many valuable goods in their hands. Hearing this, Jim was unhappy in his heart. But the situation is stronger than people. Why not go spend money to buy peace of mind? Seeing Jim walking over again, the black market merchant seemed to take the lead in speaking. You have a great servant, Lord Garo. Please take a look and let me know if there's anything you need me to introduce to you. But Jim remained silent, arms folded across his chest. He then picked up a bottle of purple potion and started introducing it on his own. This is an extremely rare single-celled parasite found inside the underground labyrinth. Of course, it comes with a very high price tag. To trade for a top-quality velvet gem, it almost feels a bit impolite to say this. But I'm not sure if you can afford it. How come this guy talks like those high-end store salespeople? That being said, this bottle of potion is filled with large fat maggots. This successfully sparked Jim's interest. He couldn't help but pick it up and examine it closely. Then he turned his head to look at Domi Domi, who obediently nodded at him. Okay, let's go with that then. He then generously took out a top-quality gem to pay the bill. Jim felt really painful spending that money. But what he didn't know was that the fat maggots in the bottle would make him even more uncomfortable. Finally dealt with the black market merchant. Jim curiously opened the bottle, intending to study it. Unexpectedly, what poured out was a creature with sharp mouthparts and several eyes, of unknown origin. Before he could react, the creature instantly burrowed into his arm, leaving him shocked, and a sense of ominous foreboding crept over him. He felt he was one step further away from the term human. The control system also prompted at this moment. A parasite has invaded your body. The parasite is beginning to assimilate with the host. But then he resigned to it. After all, he was no longer an ordinary person. Fortunately, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention. He then turned his attention to the labyrinth development plan, considering that the early development was too rapid. This will result in many basic facilities not being completed. After discussing with Domi, he decided to slow down the upgrade of the labyrinth level first. The main focus now is on internal equipment construction and military strength. He has drawn up a list of buildings. There is a cattle farm on the list that can provide food, a combat center that can enhance military strength, a bar that can gather intelligence and receive visitors. There is also a blacksmith shop, magic laboratory, fossil temple, and so on. At the same time, he pulled up the map. He asked Archer to reinvestigate the number and strength of the monsters. He needs to establish new defense outposts. He is bound to turn Garo Labyrinth into an ironclad fortress. After some wildly imaginative planning, he then used all the remaining gems to summon the Garo army. Basic construction was mostly completed after a week. The newly added military forces are also on duty, conducting patrols and training in rotations. Everything is progressing steadily and orderly in the ongoing development and construction. But the only thing that worries Jim is that his gem has run out again. But fortunately, he has now moved out of his foster father's house. This makes it easier for him to come and go from the labyrinth. He can also go out to the wild at any time. It's just too awesome. Finish today's schedule and say goodbye to Domi. He plans to go home to sleep. However, as soon as he entered the bedroom, the control system popped up a warning alert. Parasite has completed assimilation. It is attempting to gain control over the host. Jim had not reacted to the pop-up message yet. A sharp pain instantly filled the entire right eye. The bursting blood vessels shot out 2 scalding blood marks. At this point, he felt like his right eye was being roasted in flames. The piercing pain made him unable to resist grabbing at his right eye. Unexpectedly, as soon as he touched it, he felt that half of his face was covered with fleshy fragments, seemingly with eyeballs growing on top. It was truly as chilling as a biohazard, making people shudder. Dead for hundreds of years, fat maggots. It had evolved fangs in its mouth and 6 eyes all over its body. The moment it was released, it suddenly burrowed into the man's body. He suddenly felt a sharp pain. The intense pain instantly filled Jim's entire right eye, causing him to scream uncontrollably. I don't know how long it passed. A figure appeared in front of Jim's house. Claire found her way here by following the address. A heart-wrenching roar made Claire outside the door realize something eerie. She pushed the door open in a panic without saying a word. However, what came into view was Jim's devilishly handsome face. His crimson right eye emanated a terrifying red light. Before long, the two of them sat down as host and guest inside the house. Claire still felt a lingering fear from the previous scene. What exactly happened just now? It looks like half of your face is melting. However, Jim pretended not to care and said nonchalantly, it was an eye disease contracted while living in the underground labyrinth during childhood. Clearly Claire didn't believe his ghost stories. After all, she is also a labyrinth baby. She also lived in the underground labyrinth when she was young, even after she grew up. She has never seen any of the labyrinth babies she knew and came into contact with. Unexpectedly, Jim left her speechless with just one sentence. Do you know that the labyrinth baby you are familiar with is also on the 12th level? Hearing this, Claire was suddenly at a loss for words and secretly pondered in her heart. Children who can escape from the 12th level are indeed rare. Some of the terrifying diseases they have heard about seem to be normal as well. By the way, no wonder he knows so much about the infernal spider. After a brainstorming session with Claire, she managed to convince herself through successful mental reconstruction. She no longer dwelled on this issue. Actually, the main purpose of her visit this time is to invite Jim to go explore the labyrinth together tomorrow. Jim naturally agreed happily, because the construction of the Garo labyrinth cannot be separated from Jim's investment. The next morning, entrance to the P-State underground dungeon. Jim saw his companions on this trip. The yellow-haired man and Nolan had already met him in the previous operation. The friendly uncle is named Leo. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, Jim finally found out. The main team members for this operation are only these 5 people. In addition, there are 10 assault members as support. They plan to explore the 6th floor of Labyrinth for 2 weeks. But the confusion is that Claire asked the unremarkable Leo to lead the team. When Jim asked about this, Claire pretended to be mysterious and did not answer. After entering the underground labyrinth, Leo arranged for Nolan and the yellow-haired man to be in the center of the team, responsible for central support. Jim and Claire are responsible for covering the rear, not to mention under Leo's leadership. The team is always able to stay far away from monsters and other exploring teams. This allows the entire team to efficiently and systematically avoid risks and move quickly. This inevitably made Jim amazed. He once again asked Claire. Claire then explained the reason. That is, Leo has a very strong sensing ability. He is able to detect all living creatures within a range of 500 meters. It is no exaggeration to say that with this ability to anticipate enemy movements, the team can ensure victories and avoid dangers most of the time. At this moment, Captain Leo summoned them to gather in front of an abandoned labyrinth entrance. I sense that the wolf ape is lurking not far ahead. To avoid them, we have to go from here. I have detected that there is no danger inside this labyrinth. In that case, the few people here have no objections. Jim secretly made a note of this location. He wanted to include this abandoned labyrinth in his collection. Before long, the team arrived at the throne of this abandoned labyrinth. They planned to set up camp here to rest for the night before continuing their journey. Suddenly Jim received a pop-up notification from the control system. Activate the parasitic ability reconnaissance. Immediately he felt a surge of scorching heat flowing into his right eye. The sudden turn of events made Jim unable to help but let out a muffled groan. This caught Claire's attention. She asked him about his condition with concern. It's nothing, just my eye condition acting up again. But to prevent causing panic if others see it. He asked Claire to help drive away the people nearby first. After Claire left, his eye also seemed to feel no pain. Just as he slowly put down his hand, a red light flashed in the broken altar ahead, catching his attention. He quickly covered his right eye again with his hand, and when he looked with only his left eye, he couldn't see anything. Strange, could this be the investigative ability of the right eye? He couldn't help but feel doubtful. He walked forward to investigate. Sure enough, he dug out a strange stone from the ruins. When he held the stone in his hand, a pop-up window appeared again. This is a fragment of the abandoned labyrinth's energy. It can still be used despite its age. Jim lacks interest in this. Obviously, in his eyes. This broken pebble is not as attractive as a lower-class velvet gem. Who would have thought that just as this idea arose in his mind? His right eye seemed to be following orders, increasing its surveillance of the surrounding environment. When he looked up again, the scene before him was so shocking that he couldn't believe it. Could it be that these flickering bright spots Are all gems? The next morning, everyone set off early, well prepared. But Jim's anomaly was keenly noticed by Claire. You look very tired, but your mood seems good. There doesn't seem to be any problem with your eyes, right? Can his mood not be good? Relying on the ability of the right eye. He snuck around at night and collected dozens of gems secretly, hiding them away. He plans to retrieve them when he is alone next time. This guy is really sly. He suddenly stopped in front of the assault team ahead. Just as the two were puzzled, the assault team member brought the order for Captain Leo to assemble. Leo pointed his finger towards the end of the corridor and said, "The exit is behind that stone wall. However, I detected that there are two groups of monsters fighting over territory there. Judging from the sounds, one group is Megaphone Bat, and the other group is Ghost-Faced Mandrill. There are about 20 Megaphone Bats, while there are only 8 Ghost-Faced Mandrills." Based on Leo's description, everyone has a general understanding of the current situation. Next, everyone will discuss countermeasures together. Yellow-haired man suggested waiting until the two groups of monsters fight each other to the point of mutual destruction before rushing out to clean up the mess. This proposal did not receive everyone's approval because dozens of monsters are fighting each other, creating a huge noise and intense smell of blood. This may attract even more monsters and put the team in a difficult situation. At this time, Nolan suggested that we take the opportunity to strike first before these two waves of monsters engage in combat. Let's go all out and wipe them out in one go. His proposal was echoed by Claire. She was originally thinking of relying on Leo's ability to avoid fighting until they reached the 6th floor. But at the moment, this battle is inevitable. Their decision left Leo, as the captain, in a panic. These are monsters living on the 3rd floor of the underground labyrinth, and there are a total of 28 of them. Let's just go and slay them together, 5 of us. On average, each person needs to defeat 5 of them. Are these young people not afraid of death? Are they so confident in their own martial arts skills? Seeing this situation, Claire couldn't help but make a joke. Don't panic, don't panic. It's time to show you how awesome Jim is. Jim wastes no time. He drew his sword and walked to the front of the team. No problem. I will be responsible for killing half of the monsters in a moment. No one is allowed to steal them. Meanwhile, the battle between Ghostface Mandrill and Megaphone Bat has begun, just as Leo detected. Nearly 30 monsters are fighting in a group. Today is really unlucky. I actually encountered this group of roadblocks while Leo was still muttering in his mouth. Just saw Jim first crouching his body. He suddenly kicked the ground with both feet. He rushed into the group of monsters like an arrow leaving the bowstring. Immediately, his figure was like a swimming dragon, slashing left and right like a tiger among wolves, every strike hitting its mark. Leo was terrified, never having seen someone like Jim fight so cleanly and efficiently. Because the fighting style of each labyrinth baby is related to the level of the labyrinth they once inhabited and the environment they were in. For example, the fighting styles of the yellow-haired man and Nolan involve bold and aggressive moves without much consideration. This is the fighting style of the majority of labyrinth babies. However, Jim's moves not only have the potential to kill with one blow, but also consistently target vital points. Simple, efficient, and considered an art form of combat. At the same time, he surpasses Nolan and the yellow-haired man by more than a mile in terms of both speed and strength. Possessing an ability to detect, Leo seems to be able to discern more details about Jim. At this moment, Claire on the side interrupted Leo's thoughts with her words. I told you earlier that Jim is absolutely the violent type. He escaped from the slaughter on the 8th floor of the labyrinth. He may have learned the most effective survival methods when he was still a child. Or he may belong to those who are naturally gifted in combat. Leo strongly agrees with Claire's statement. However, Claire is troubled at the moment. Yet, she still has to help Jim come up with a story. Because she promised Jim to help cover up his identity as the 12th floor labyrinth baby. This guy really doesn't know how to be discreet. It's hard not to attract attention with just a little bit of a performance. Although Jim appears ordinary on the surface at the moment, his heart is already thrilling. Through the recent battle, he felt that his body had undergone drastic changes at some point. He felt extremely light and agile. The monster's movements appeared extremely slow in his eyes. The power within his body had also increased several times compared to before. In order to appear normal, he was suppressing his power throughout the entire process. These changes were all brought upon him by the parasite. His weakness detection ability has also been strengthened by the parasite. Weakness display is no longer just surface-level dashed lines. It has turned into a perspective. Just like now, the weakness of Ghost-faced Mandrill suddenly appears before him. It has accurately bypassed his ribs by his swift knife strike, piercing through the heart. The magical abilities displayed by the parasite intrigued Jim, and he couldn't help but become obsessed, deciding to spend some time researching it thoroughly. However, upon second thought, he realized that this parasite seemed to be a double-edged sword. After all, if it doesn't behave, it will turn on the host and try to devour him. The battle had ended before he knew it. At this moment, Claire approached cautiously. "I need you to think for me," she said. "In total, there were only 28 monsters, and you single-handedly killed 20 of them. Take a look at the assault team behind you. Now everyone worships you as an idol. They have even elevated you to the status of a deity. I'm the one who's been working hard to make up stories to justify your abilities." Jim was speechless at the absurd words. If Claire were to find out the truth, would she go crazy? In order to prevent anyone else in the team from continuing to talk about Jim, Claire quickly dispatched the task force to clean up the battlefield and collect the gem. Just then, Leo, looking flustered, ran over. He also brought some bad news. They have been targeted by someone in expedition team twice their size. The team is divided into several groups and is surrounding them. Leo was also too immersed in the battle just now, which is why he didn't notice their tracks. By the time he noticed, the opponents had obviously completed their encirclement of them. Claire was suddenly horrified at the words. She immediately ordered everyone to stay on high alert and prepare for battle. In this underground labyrinth, when found again, they had clearly completed the encirclement of him. Claire was suddenly shocked at the words. She immediately ordered everyone to be on high alert and ready for battle. In this underground labyrinth, potential enemies are not just monsters. It is very common for all kinds of monsters to kill each other in the labyrinth. Just went through a battle. The team members are all exhausted. Moreover, the opponents are not only full of energy, but also have more people. The current situation is very unfavorable for Jim and the others. At this time, Claire looked at Jim with a serious expression. "If something goes wrong later, can I leave the decision-making to you? Okay, with me here, you can relax." Immediately, everyone lined up. They wanted to see what tricks the other side was up to. It was not just one guy with a head full of red hair. He swaggered over with a large group of people surrounding him. "Claire, we haven't seen each other for a while. I thought you were killed by the infernal spider. After you finish your nonsense, please leave on your own. I didn't expect this person, Claire, to know you." So Jim quietly asked Leo about his identity. He belongs to an organization called Exploration Association. However, it has a very poor reputation. In plain terms, this is just a group that blocks doors and charges fees. They are troublemakers who incite violent incidents. After hearing Leo's description, Jim's favorable impression of the team before him instantly plummeted to the lowest point. His right eye unexpectedly lit up with a red glow on its own, starting to scan and assess the opponent's strength. There are approximately 40 people on the opposite side, including 9 labyrinth babies. His strength is slightly stronger than others. The rest are all around level 6. Moreover, judging from the stern expressions and imposing manner of the opponents, they seem to be a group of battle-hardened warriors accustomed to killing. If the two sides were to really fight, our side would definitely have no chance of winning. Thinking of this, Jim's mood inexplicably became irritable. a strong sense of killing intent cannot help but burst and spread from his body. The man was originally a strong individual in the underground labyrinth, accustomed to killing with his special ability. In his hands, he controls a mysterious Garo labyrinth. Under his rule, he has many brave and skilled Garo people. But managing such a vast labyrinth nearly depleted all his savings. He had to go out to take on some odd jobs to earn extra income. Now he is pretending to be a newcomer, hiding behind others, and acting like a curious baby. But as Jim's mood became more irritable, a strong murderous intent unconsciously permeated through his body. However, this murderous intent made Claire and Leo, who were unaware of it, suddenly feel a chill down their spines as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Under the shroud of this murderous intent, they couldn't muster any feeling of resistance. Their whole bodies froze in place. Claire's face turned instantly pale, with no trace of color. The sudden change in emotions was naturally noticed by Mateo, mistakenly thinking that Claire was afraid of him. "I can't stand that innocent look on your face. I can't believe it's only been a short time since we last met. How did I discover that you've become strange? You have become quite lovely." This nearly made Claire draw her sword and fight him to the death. Unexpectedly, she was held back by the wise and mature Leo, indicating to her to stay calm and not start a conflict. But Mateo seemed unappreciative. He continued to talk on and on. "We originally discovered that you were being attacked by monsters and intended to come to your aid. However, it seems that you do not welcome us." He then threw a wink at Claire, thinking it was cool. Claire was indeed embarrassed to the point that her face turned green, with bulging veins. Who would have thought that Mateo suddenly turned to look at Jim and said, "You look good. If you are interested in making more money, come and work with me." However, Jim rejected straight away without even thinking about it. "You don't have to reject me so decisively. Go back and think about it before giving me an answer." Saying this, he led his troops to withdraw. How does this big brother feel? Is he here to declare sovereignty in a show of force? Mateo tried to steal a march on me in person. Claire almost couldn't control her short fuse. But the situation was stronger than people, plus Leo's dissuasion. She managed to restrain herself again this time. At the same time, Leo, worried about sparking another conflict, quickly changed the subject. He turned and asked Jim, "How can you be so calm? Do you already have a plan?" The Jim who was asked looked dumbfounded at this moment. "I just broke out in a cold sweat. I have never felt such a strong desire to kill in my life." Leo's words were immediately endorsed by Claire. "I felt the same way at that time. It's like the king of the labyrinth standing right behind me." Their conversation left Nolan and the yellow-haired man puzzled. Leo, seeing this, explained, "You two have experienced too little killing. This invisible killing intent can only be perceived after experiencing life and death multiple times." Suddenly Jim curiously asked about Claire and Mateo's affair. I can't believe the intense gossip fire burning within him. Sure enough, this question has triggered Claire's annoyance again. It turns out Mateo and Claire have known each other since they were young. They were babies living on the same level of the labyrinth. At that time, Mateo was brave and ambitious, embodying leadership qualities. However, after escaping back to the surface, he tasted the sweetness of freedom and money. He changed completely. Some people, once they have changed, can never go back. Claire has many emotions when talking about this. What just happened made Claire realize that they have caught Mateo's attention. Although there hasn't been a conflict yet, based on her understanding of Mateo. This person will definitely engage in some scheming behind our backs. So she decided to give up and continue with a plan to explore the 6th floor. After all, they did gain something along the way. After cleaning up the battlefield here, she ordered a return along the original path. The entire return journey took about a week before they walked out of the labyrinth. After selling the items, everyone joyfully received generous rewards. After bidding farewell to Claire, Jim turned around and immediately went to Swindler Old Man to inquire about Mateo's situation. Swindler is also considered an industry insider. Naturally, he knows some inside information. In fact, there is quite a controversy surrounding Mateo among people in the industry. He uses the name of the Exploration Association to directly restrict and control the underground labyrinth. At the same time, he has set the minimum level requirement for the labyrinth babies. This measure has greatly increased the survival rate of ordinary adventurers. You know, no one used to manage it before. Anyone could come and go from the labyrinth at will. The survival rate of exploration teams was only 20%. So currently, public opinion seems to lean towards Exploration Association taking control of the underground labyrinth. In addition, the swindler has given another piece of information. Recently, there is a group claiming to be human hunters. They are committing murders and atrocities inside the labyrinth. These bastards are all masked and have ground their teeth as sharp as sharks. Some of them may come from the depths of the labyrinth, and their strength should not be underestimated. He warned Jim that it's best to deter if encountering this group of people. Jim inquired about the news and Swindler, and then waved goodbye and left. In the end, he told Swindler that this time, there was no Jim to be offered. Swindler felt quite stunned that he had been freeloaded. Inside Garo Labyrinth, behind Domi, a spatial crack opens. Jim walks out slowly from the crack. "Master, you're back just in time. A guest has arrived at the bar. I was just about to go meet him." This makes Jim very puzzled that there are guests visiting again. The visitor is an elf mercenary, whom Domi has contacted before. But she felt that the other party lacks both loyalty and honor. Upon hearing this, Jim couldn't help but furrow his brows. If that's the case, why not send him away? Why keep him in Labyrinth? Domi, on the other hand, was hesitant and stuttered. It took him a long time to finally give the reason. It's because the Garo Labyrinth really lacks someone who is good at investigation. Although Garo Archer has extremely strong vision. However, their muscular build is not suitable for the role of a scout. Therefore, the mapping of the area around the labyrinth was delayed. Understanding the whole story, Jim decided to personally meet the elf, and the two of them walked into the bar together. No need to mention sitting in the corner of the bar, cloaked figure. He is the person they are looking for. The man noticed Jim approaching him and hurriedly got up to bow. She simultaneously pushed off her heavy cloak. She revealed a head full of silver-gray hair. The most attractive feature was her pointed elf ears. The man was once the first guest to arrive at the house. The mysterious potion he brought. He then transformed into this terrifying and horrifying appearance. But now, there is another strange guest who has mysteriously arrived at home. What kind of changes will this bring to him again? Jim quietly observes the vigilant elf in front of him. The elf does not hesitate. Her direct gaze was considered by Domi to be an unreasonable offense. He immediately rebuked her angrily. However, Elf's eyes remained indifferent. She calmly glanced at Domi. But the next second, she unexpectedly lowered her head, lowered her eyes, and knelt down. She recited in her mouth, "The only master of the throne, who can see through the dark veil. Please forgive me, this humble underground wanderer. I entered your darkness without permission. Requesting that you grant me this great honor, let me present the name of this worthless wanderer to the great master of the throne." This sentence made Jim's scalp tingle. After tolerating and giving her a response, Elf then continued to speak. "Humble me. I am an elf mercenary named Lisa, wandering in the underground labyrinth." I never expected Jim's eyes to suddenly turn cold and full of killing intent. "Well done, Lisa, but I want to tell you that even though we are so close, you won't be able to stab me with the dagger hidden in your cloak." Domi, who was beside them, was suddenly startled and immediately spoke out in a rebuking tone. Unexpectedly, before the words were finished, they were interrupted by Jim. Domi could only stand helplessly on the side, deeply blaming himself for not leaving the elf behind. The elf exposed by Jim remained unruffled. "The great King Garo. Please forgive me, a humble and worthless person, for rashly questioning your abilities. Stop, stop, stop. Don't pile on your flowery words. If you keep talking like this, I could make you sick. Stand up and speak properly. Elf stood up. She still looked calm and composed as she explained. The reason for doing this is quite simple. I just want to confirm Jim's abilities and whether he is worthy of my loyalty. After all, for thousands of years, she had never heard of a human becoming the master of an underground labyrinth. Her answer did intrigue Jim. Completely ignoring the gnashing teeth of Domi next to her, she continued speaking with an air of self-importance in that moment just now. I confirm that I am unable to harm you in battle. Jim also said this with interest. Do you already recognize me now? Since the conversation has started, Jim no longer dwells on this matter. Being able to subdue a rebellious subordinate, he also feels a little proud in his heart. In subsequent inquiries, he learned that Lisa's skills are in investigation, searching, and collecting information. It perfectly meets Jim's current needs, so he decisively recruited her. This decision made Domi extremely anxious. In her eyes, Jim's actions were too hasty. Isn't there still you, the big boss, watching on the side? What tricks can an elf like her come up with? He said, and then turned around, taking Lisa to visit the labyrinth. Lisa also gave Domi a sly smile that succeeded in her scheme. This drove Domi crazy. She felt that the chief's position was in jeopardy. She secretly made up her mind. She must expose Lisa's true identity as a spy. But as they walked along, Lisa couldn't help but frown. The core of the labyrinth, left unguarded here, is exposed to the outside. Inadequate management system and haphazard martial arts training. What puzzles Lisa the most is that there is actually a rotating rest day system in place here. At the same time, she also found out that the production capacity of Garo Labyrinth is low. Velvet gem obtained from mines and field outings. Apart from daily expenses, the production capacity is now left with only 3 poor-quality gems. The whole Garo Labyrinth is basically just scraping by to meet basic needs. It's a struggling, declining force. All of this made Lisa speculate. This so-called Garo Labyrinth. It surely won't last long in the underground labyrinth surrounded by strong enemies. After the 3 of them circled around, they returned to the bar. Jim then asked Lisa about her opinion on the labyrinth. After a moment of silence, Lisa spoke up with a surprising statement. Do you know that within a distance of 4 days' journey from you lies a powerful labyrinth ruled by the Flood Dragon King, rumored to have existed before the Geyser War, and to be the only surviving overlord? Upon hearing this, Jim suddenly realized his Garo labyrinth. They are nothing but ants before such a powerful labyrinth overlord. No need to think, it can be certain. The opponent's army is unmatched in terms of both scale and quality. In terms of quantity, the opponent is undoubtedly overwhelming Garo Labyrinth. And Lisa also pointed out that Flood Dragon King seems to be aware of the existence of Garo Labyrinth. This inevitably made Jim furrow his brows and think. According to the law of the jungle, weak labyrinths are often raided and absorbed by powerful labyrinths. Remembering childhood on the 12th floor, their group of labyrinth babies are always enslaved and used to dig tunnels to attack other labyrinths. It is precisely because of those days of digging tunnels he witnessed numerous battles of labyrinth monsters with his own eyes. Suddenly he realized greatly the reason Flood Dragon King has not attacked them yet. He must have encountered obstacles on the front line. When they break through the front line, it will be the time when Flood Dragon King launches a massive attack. Jim's deduction suggests. Lisa also recalled that between the Flood Dragon King and the Garo Labyrinth, there is indeed another labyrinth ruled by the Vermilion Panther. While the Flood Dragon King once mobilized forces trying to devour the Vermilion Panther's labyrinth, for some unknown reason, it failed in the end. Based on the information provided by Lisa, Jim became even more certain of his deduction. The Flood Dragon King has not yet obtained the front line to attack the Garo Labyrinth. At the same time, in order to avoid unnecessary complications, he will definitely take a detour to bypass the Vermilion Panther's territory. This back and forth leaves Garo Labyrinth with at least 2 months of preparation time. It doesn't seem too bad for now. But Lisa seems to know more than I had imagined. Lisa did not hide anything about this either. She admitted that she had indeed worked for the Flood Dragon King. Domi finally seized the opportunity. This elf of unknown origin. She must be a spy sent by the other side to gather information. Unexpectedly, Lisa also retorted, stating that she is just a mercenary and is only doing things for money. Now she is employed by the King of Garo, so she will not betray the employer during the employment period. We elves value promises as important as our lives. Jim also timely interrupted their argument and formally assigned Lisa her first task after being hired. Firstly, she will need to apply all that she has learned and experienced in the Flood Dragon King Labyrinth. She needs to describe every detail meticulously. Next, she needs to go out to investigate and make sure to find out the number of enemy troops and their direction of movement. Finally, she can use her identity as a mercenary to infiltrate their ranks. After all, they have hired you before, so their guards will be lower. Don't worry about the issue of payment. The price I offer will definitely satisfy you. An elf with long ears is trying espionage for the first time in 50 years. But even she didn't expect. She was exposed right at the beginning. These days, Domi has already gotten used to reporting Elf Lisa's situation punctually every day. The little elf that Master keeps has left with some food, saying that they are going to investigate intelligence. It was nice to accompany her in acting for a few days. It's time for us to start preparing. Upon hearing this, Domi felt confused but couldn't help but remind again, because she always felt that Elf must be hiding something. The timing of Elf's appearance has already aroused Jim's suspicion. The labyrinth, which is weak and on the verge of war, is not a good place to seek refuge. So he was sure she had ulterior motives at that time. He suspected that she was spying on military information for the Flood Dragon King. So he decided to use a trick within a trick. He took her on a tour of the Garo Labyrinth. He tried his best to show her the fact of our vulnerability to a single blow. Upon hearing this, Domi couldn't help but feel shocked. Master, why is this happening? While she hasn't gone far yet. I immediately send out Berserker to bring her back and chop her. Unexpectedly, she was stopped by Jim. What I want is for her to bring the message back. Remember, wars are fought with financial and military power. At that time, they will make a wrong assessment of our fighting numbers. And they will know that we have no Jim reserves whatsoever. In this upcoming war, we have no choice but to fight in fear and trembling. Domi was even more confused after hearing Jim's explanation. Because as Jim described, this is indeed the truth about the Garo Labyrinth. Indeed, but I also got the information I wanted from Lisa. She mentioned that the Flood Dragon King is powerful enough to be immune to all kinds of attacks. But he is very afraid of humans. Just because he heard that humans have a weapon that can kill him. That's why he has been lurking deep in the labyrinth, avoiding conflicts with humans. Since the Flood Dragon King fears human weapons, I must prepare well in that case. I will await his arrival respectfully. By the way, I told Lisa at the time, we will have 2 months to prepare. It's also to deceive her. These days you must strengthen and expand the patrol range. I guess they should be arriving soon. I will be able to bring back the gift in 3 days. Jim said, then he walked through the space crack, leaving a bewildered Domi behind. The next morning, Claire was awakened by a phone call from Jim. Jim didn't waste any time either. He immediately asked Claire to repay the debt of saving his life on the 2nd floor of the labyrinth. Time passed quickly, and another week went by. As Jim expected, a vanguard team sent by the Flood Dragon King has already reached near the Garo Labyrinth. The enormous and powerful physique makes the Garo Guard look like a child in front of it. After taking out the Garo Guard, the leading yellow dragon made a move. He was gloating on the side, showing off his sharp tongue. His subordinates, on the other hand, were unfazed. They whispered to each other, "Here he goes again!" When passing through the territory of the Vermilion Panther earlier, he didn't dare say a word and ran faster than anyone else. He's just a coward who claims to be a descendant of the Dragon Clan every day. The Yellow Dragon seemed to have heard the whispers of his subordinates. He looked around to locate the source of the sound. Just now, he was scheming behind his subordinates. Suddenly, he put on a flattering expression, praising the boss as mighty and radiating a green aura of power. The praise boosted Yellow Dragon's spirits and motivation greatly. He boasted that he would sit on the throne of the Garo Labyrinth and have a big feast at noon. This scene made the subordinates unable to help but start whispering, "I told you so." Those with fully developed cerebellums do not have this symptom. At this moment, Yellow Dragon made a new discovery. Baby Snake also realized the danger and quickly turned around to escape. Yellow Dragon couldn't let it get away. He was worried that there was no one to show him the way. He immediately called his subordinates to chase after. Just as they cornered Garo Baby Snake with no way out, suddenly a mutation occurred. A figure flashed in front of its eyes. Originally within reach, Garo Baby Snake disappeared on the spot. The sudden change made Yellow Dragon unable to help but exclaim in surprise. At this time, a faint voice came through. The descendants of the Dragon Clan would also be in such a panic. Shouting and screaming, are they? Who is tarnishing the reputation of the Dragon Clan? Quickly reveal your name. Jim's eyes suddenly sharpened as he turned to look. I believe I am the chief of your Garo. Jim's appearance made the Yellow Dragon group somewhat flustered. I suggest that the Yellow Dragon group retreat immediately and report back. Who would have thought that the Yellow Dragon group would start showing off on the spot, in the name of being descendants of the Dragon Clan, clamoring to have a one-on-one fight with Jim? Upon hearing the term, descendants of the Dragon Clan, Jim's brain swelled. It turns out he had been pursuing the Yellow Dragon group all along. He has heard this term no less than 50 times during this period. At this point, he can't bear it anymore. He gave instructions to Domi behind him to take action. In an instant, dozens of small heads emerged from the surrounding cliffs. They are those usually unnoticed Garo baby snakes. What is terrifying is that they are now all equipped with Thunderbolt shield scatterguns in hand. Yellow Dragon realized the danger at this moment, even if he was very foolish. Little did he expect that he would straighten his waist and muster up his courage to shamelessly confront Jim on a moral level. He even let the shaky-handed laborer get involved in the terrifying war. His words completely angered the honorable Domi Garo people. How could this foolish lizard criticize and interfere? She can no longer hold back the Gatling gun in her hand. It's going to fire. The next second, following Domi's command, dozens of guns and cannons were all fired at once, mercilessly venting their anger towards the Yellow Dragon. This is the most stylish descendant of the Dragon Clan in the underground labyrinth. He is gradually lost in the adoring gaze of his subordinates. He remains calm in the face of dozens of spears and guns alone. He fantasizes about using his strong personal charm to make his opponents put down their weapons, kneel down, and sing surrender. Unexpectedly, the opposite happened. He successfully angered the girl holding the Gatling gun. Following Domi's command, Garo's baby snake fired their shotgun in response. In an instant, a relentless barrage of indiscriminate gunfire poured down. Facing the whistling bullets rushing towards it, Monster was in a panic but still unafraid. They naively believed that human weapons could not cause substantial harm to it. However, the next second it was shot in the head. The severe pain in his head and the gushing blood filled him with intense fear. Just as he was about to turn and retreat, he found that his escape route had already been blocked by the Garo guard. They could only huddle, holding their heads in resignation, and endure the hail of bullets. Jim quietly watched the scene before him. Deep in his heart, he silently appreciated Claire's life-saving grace. It was truly generous. It turned out that 2 days ago Jim made a phone call. Claire had a truckload of weapons delivered to him in the afternoon. Jim couldn't help but admire Claire's connections. At the same time, Claire was also puzzled by Jim's actions. Jim just said he was prepared and didn't say much more. From the current situation on the field, it can be seen that firearms do have limited killing power against the monster. But it can make Garo Baby Snake become a true warrior. Join the war. He turned his head and looked at Domi, who was having a great time playing next to him, and felt even more reassured. However, there was always an unexpected occurrence. He found that the bullets were unable to cause any damage to the yellow dragon. Just at that moment, the yellow dragon himself also realized this situation. He thought it was an illusion. He turned his head to look at his subordinates, each one brutally beaten, with cries of agony echoing continuously. He was pleasantly surprised all of a sudden. He then switched to self-appreciation mode, displaying a proud and self-satisfied demeanor. This made Domi grind her teeth in anger. She aimed at the yellow dragon and started firing wildly. On the other hand, the yellow dragon struck a pose amidst the pouring rain of bullets. The appearance of playing with one's hair and striking poses. This made the Garo guard unable to resist drawing his sword and stepping forward to chop him. I never expected that at the moment of touching the yellow dragon, the sword would also be broken. This immediately terrified the Garo guard. This moment of distraction was seized by the yellow dragon. He was knocked flying by a punch. Then he fiercely provoked Domi. Domi, who was already agitated, couldn't bear it. He immediately shouldered the RPG and aimed it towards Yellow Dragon. She was stopped by Jim. Just because he became interested in Yellow Dragon. Without hesitation, he quickly leaped behind Yellow Dragon. Then his figure swiftly moved like a ghost to the front of Yellow Dragon. He swung his knife towards the neck. Unexpectedly, Yellow Dragon bit his waist and avoided it. The sudden turn of events left Jim wide-eyed and incredulous. Unexpectedly, before Jim could steady himself, Yellow Dragon had already borrowed the momentum of straightening up. His arms enveloping the fierce momentum suddenly smashed down. Jim immediately flipped and leaped to the side. He took the opportunity to move around to the back and aimed for the back of the head with a slash. The sound of metal and stone clashing rang out. Yellow Dragon was hit and let out a loud roar. However, Jim was extremely frustrated. If this didn't break through the defense, what was the point in continuing to fight? He suddenly unleashed a powerful dragon tail sweep. Jim immediately blocked it with a horizontal sword. He was still knocked several meters away by the powerful blow. Domi couldn't help but worry about Jim's miserable condition. But fortunately, Jim quickly emerged from the smoke and dust. This guy is tough. His physique probably doesn't give much ground to even the infernal spider. Although his intelligence is not there, his combat awareness is shocking. He always seizes the opportunity to launch a fierce counterattack against me. At the thought of this, his right eye unknowingly lit up with a red light, sweeping towards Yellow Dragon. At the same time, he exerted force beneath his feet, vigorously kicked, and wielded his sword to attack. Before Yellow Dragon could react, he only felt several sword lights flashing past. Jim has already performed a set of smooth and quick combo moves. He still failed to leave a single wound on Yellow Dragon's body. Is this guy really without any weaknesses? Even the spy eye enhanced by Parasite couldn't find a weakness. While Jim was distracted, Yellow Dragon's punch full of anger came crashing down. Suddenly, a red light flashed across the area between Yellow Dragon's scapula and neck. This discovery left him no time to dodge. He was solidly hit by Yellow Dragon. Witnessing Jim being injured by Yellow Dragon, Domi was instantly thrown into a state of panic. Suddenly, the dense smoke and dust were shattered by a blast of air wave. Jim is holding a long knife. The momentum swirling around his body, he steps out slowly. His crimson right eye flickers with a bloodthirsty red light. Terrifying scars appear along his right cheek as well. Yellow Dragon seemed to sense Jim's terrifying killing intent as well. The momentum emanating from him surged instantly, causing people to shudder uncontrollably. At the same time, Inside the Flood Dragon King's labyrinth, Elf Lisa cautiously walked through the trap-laden passageway. She indifferently passed by the laborers working themselves to exhaustion along the road in the labyrinth. She held an even greater disdain towards Jim, the leader of the Garo labyrinth, because the cruelty in front of her was the true image that a labyrinth should have. Lisa came before the Flood Dragon King and knelt down, just as Jim had expected. She truthfully reported everything she had seen and heard in the Garo labyrinth to the Flood Dragon King, with the plan to obtain the precious velvet gem as a reward. She went to persuade Jim to attack the territory of the Vermilion Panther a week later. When both sides were weakened, the Flood Dragon King would take advantage of the situation and seize control of the Garo labyrinth in one fell swoop. The Flood Dragon King was very pleased with Lisa's plan and ordered the main forces to set out for the Garo labyrinth tomorrow. He has not initiated a territory war for a long time. His warlike bloodline has made him somewhat impatient at this point. This is a monster with ancient Dragon Clan bloodline. He not only possesses unimaginable combat instincts, his defense is equally astounding. The hard scales are not afraid of swords and axes at all. Even in the face of Gatling's sweeping fire, he still exudes charm, like a spring breeze brushing the face. The situation of being passively beaten has thoroughly angered Jim. He maximized the power of Spy Eye. He did find a weakness behind the yellow dragon as expected. Suddenly, electric arc surrounded him, as he attempted to launch a fatal strike against the yellow dragon. The yellow dragon seemed to sense the approaching overwhelming hostility. The momentum on his body also suddenly surged and churned. His transformation heightened Jim's killing intent. He couldn't hold back and took the initiative to make a move, slashing towards Yellow Dragon like lightning with a knife in hand. Unexpectedly, facing his attack, Yellow Dragon remained motionless. He let the sharp blade chop on his body. At this moment, though he took the hit, but he still couldn't inflict substantial damage on Yellow Dragon. However, Jim's goal had been achieved, because Yellow Dragon's weakness lies on the scapula behind its back. At the same time, he was puzzled by Yellow Dragon's motionless behavior. He couldn't help but suspect that Yellow Dragon deliberately exposed its weakness and set a trap. However, this thought only flashed by momentarily. He would not give up the opportunity for a decisive victory in front of him. He immediately kicked the ground violently to borrow the force of rebound and swiftly shot towards Yellow Dragon. However, what Jim didn't know was that Yellow Dragon had long been scared to the point of sweating profusely. The feeling of being watched when Jim took a step behind him earlier, it made him feel even more that his weaknesses had been exposed. For a moment, he felt a horrifying shiver running through his body. At this moment, he had already sensed Jim's movements behind him. Even though he was scared to the point where his heart was in his throat, he still didn't dare to move. The moment the blade cut through flesh, the pain spread throughout the entire body. Suddenly, it made him extremely scared, with his hair standing on end. The gushing blood made him incredulous. This might be the first time he had ever been injured in his life. Suddenly, an indescribable sense of life and death crisis rose behind him. Instinctively, the survival consciousness made him bow down with his head in his hands instantly, barely avoiding Jim's sudden deadly strike. He begged loudly for mercy, claiming that he was just a mercenary, and was deceived and forced to come by the Flood Dragon King. This cowardly appearance immediately dampened Jim's enthusiasm to kill it. But this created another problem. Originally, killing the Yellow Dragon would resolve everything. However, how should we handle this guy if he begs for mercy? You should know that usual attacks can't even hurt him at all. Since it's so hard to decide, Domi suggests just killing him to make things easier. Jim also seems to think it's a good suggestion. The master and servant echo each other. This terrified Yellow Dragon on the side. He hastened to show his loyalty and decided to switch allegiances. He wants to pledge allegiance to the Garo labyrinth. However, such an easy act of betrayal and switching sides. How can Jim easily believe it? Seeing this, The yellow dragon immediately vowed solemnly, swearing in the name of the dragon clan to never betray. With the yellow dragon's vow, a dazzling light suddenly radiated from his body. However, this scene was considered by Jim as a trickery to deceive. He angrily raised his hand to draw his sword, intending to kill him on the spot. Unexpectedly, Domi spoke up to stop him at this moment, because she realized that just now was a genuine oath of the Dragon Clan. Once the oath is broken, the retribution will be the curse of friendship, death, and extreme pain. Even if this guy is just a mixed-blood dragon of impure lineage. But the oath remains valid. The yellow dragon saw Domi speaking for him. The hanging heart was finally put down. Little did they know, Jim had already figured out the perfect way to deal with the yellow dragon. Since this guy has a tough hide and is as strong as the Flood Dragon King, then it's a good opportunity to test the effectiveness of standard anti-tank shells. So the poor yellow dragon was bound up like this, playing the role of a live target. Before firing, Jim also warned the yellow dragon not to dodge in order to ensure the effectiveness of the test. Otherwise, it would be considered as betrayal. Without waiting for the yellow dragon to react, he fired the cannonball straight away. A violent explosion made the yellow dragon faint on the spot. It seems that this guy is not that strong either. He collapsed with just one shot. Lisa happened to come back at this time and witnessed this horrifying scene. Jim tentatively asked Lisa if she knew the yellow dragon. Lisa actually bluntly admitted it. She then mentioned that they only met a few times because of their different job responsibilities. To avoid arousing suspicion from Lisa, Jim did not delve deeper into this issue. Instead, he asked if Lisa already knew about the Flood Dragon King's itinerary and direction. Lisa lied, saying that the Flood Dragon King had already gathered his forces. He probably won't besiege the city until about a month later. The time left for us to prepare is too short, based on our daily production capacity of 3 low-grade gems. We are unable to recruit enough soldiers to deal with the war. So we need a large number of gems to recruit soldiers. Take advantage of this opportunity. Lisa proposed to Jim a plan to first conquer the Vermilion Panther, emphasizing that this seemingly risky plan is the only way to obtain a large number of gems at the moment. She also kindly reminded Jim, first spend a week collecting gems to recruit more soldiers before conquering the Vermilion Panther. After all, the Vermilion Panther is not easy to deal with. And if this battle fails, not to mention dealing with the army of the Flood Dragon King. To cooperate, Domi also pretended to agree with the plan proposed by Lisa. In that case, Jim suggested that Lisa first sketch out the route to the Vermilion Panther territory. After sending off Lisa, Jim instructed Domi to intensify patrols around the labyrinth. Then, in a hurry, Jim also left a certain location in the Garo Labyrinth underground labyrinth. Jim took out the map of levels 1 to 3 of the labyrinth. He imported all of them into the control system. As the control system scans and captures, he successfully located the gem hidden on the 3rd floor of the labyrinth. He then activated the spy eye enhanced by the parasite. This time he plans to make a big move. He used the spy eye's ability to detect gems, planning to sweep through like a locust plague. He intends to dig out all the gems along floors 1 to 3 on the way. He is really a ruthless person who acts as he says. Instantly transfer the strong energy to the legs. He dashed towards the 3rd floor of the labyrinth. Wherever he passed by, any location hiding a gem, even the most remote corners, were all swiftly collected by him.